Hans is racing to find the dragon slayer. Before two posh families start a massive brawl over it, he drags his scrawny frame through the Compton Peaks daily, acting like he's just surveying dirt. But honestly, he is low-key hunting that lair, cause if the help finds out, the tea will spill instantly. After hours of failing, Hans is toast and ready to bail. Then, while zoning out, he trips. Whoops. Straight off the cliff. Pain explodes. Bones snap. He's stuck halfway down, bleeding out and totally solo. Certain he's done for. Then, spot check, he sees it. A secret cave in the wall. He creeps in and finds a huge hall with a glowing gold ring on the floor. The second he steps inside, his cuts zip shut and his ribs fix themselves. Way inside the cave, Hans spots a golden dragon. He touches it, gets blasted with light, and boom, dragon heart and superpowers unlocked. Okay, rewind. Before that epic loot, back at a boot camp, the Compton Range, scouts are whining that the heavy rain is wrecking their vibe. But were rumors of weird lights popping off in the northeast. Blinded by rain, the troops figure it's just McCarthy's crew messing around. Big boss on site is Count Adrien von Callista, or so they think. Hearing the news, the Count stands up to check the intel himself. Meanwhile, the grunts are already salty about the misery they're in, suffering on someone else's turf just for a shot at a rare dragon. Plus, they're stuck in the mud just so the Count can kiss up to the bigwigs. Word on the street is the Count is trash, but the troops are glad he can at least lead a fight. Joke's on them, they are totally clueless. That guy in the helmet? Not actually Callista. It's our boy Hans, who's been waiting on Callista since they were kids. Started with homework help, then he got forced into sword training and the rough stuff. When Adrian's dad kicked the bucket, Hans got stuck running the whole show. Basically, Hans became Adrian's clone while the real dude wasted away partying and chasing skirts. So now he's eating dirt on the front lines instead of the real Adrian. Hans was cool with the gig, but dying in a war wasn't in the contract. Hans and the squad finally hit the spot where the lights were seen. Since they can't see squat, a soldier says, "Let's dip." But Hans is spacing out, thinking about how much regular life sucks, and if heaven is even a thing once you die. Right as they turn to bail, a soldier gets dropped. Ambush alert. In the chaos, Hans gets skewered by a spear from the back. He hits the dirt, wondering if this is game over. Can't believe he's dying as a fake version of someone else. While blacking out, he wonders if there's a do-over where he can actually be himself, not a copycat. With that thought, Hans shuts his eyes and fades to black. Snap, eyes open. Malene the maid is right there, bawling her eyes out. Why is this kid maid chillin' here? Weird vibes. She's begging and calling me my lord. Big yikes. Wait, I'm holding a whip? In a palace. Totally sus. He peeps in the glass and sees Count Callista smug staring back. He eats the cane and touches his face. No way. He tries to help, but she blocks, like I'm gonna strike. Whoops, back up. Yo, what year is it? She whispers. Year 8. Hans is shook. The math ain't mathing. He's inside his old boss, Count Callista while. Plus, he rewound time, 15 whole years. Flops on the bed. Is this a prank, or what? Room's bougie, and this body is super soft. Zero muscle since this dude never worked. Hans needs a sec. As she walks off, you can totally spot cane marks on her legs. Yikes. Proof Adrian's been treating her like a punching bag. Total creep behavior. Hans faceplants, the bed. Adrien wins worst lord ever. A legit trash fire. Dude's famous for stopping staff over dumb stuff and treating them like his personal toys. Growing up, Adrien just spiraled into a lazy, money-burning mess. And poor Hans was always stuck cleaning up Adrian's disasters. Suddenly, brain blast. Hans bolts, rips a door open, and wait, what? Should be his bedroom, but it's stuffed with junk. A literal storage closet. He is shook. Can't believe it. But he is 100% sure it's the right spot. Lived there 20 years, no doubt. Total confusion mode, then Bama servant calls out. Claude's like, Lord, why are you hanging in the servant zone? Hans knows this dude. Grew up with Claude and Malene. Back in the day, his old squad look exactly the same, too. So Hans turns and goes, yo, where's that servant guy? Claude's brain breaks. He's never heard of a Hans. Hans tries to explain himself, but Claude is totally lost. Then the harsh reality smacks him in the face. Since he's a dream now, Hans never existed. Talk about an identity crisis. Gossip spread fast. The Lord is acting sus. Guys, some saw him getting up at the crack of dawn. Weird, usually he snoozes till noon. Maids are spilling tea on Hans when he jumps. He's like, my bad, then asks for nanny. Super chill. 7 days since Hans hijacked Adrian's meat suit. Time to face facts. He's a Drine now. Gotta play the part. Nanny rushes in pronto to check on the young master. She's stressing his lack of Z's. He's like, I barely sleep. Hans blinked awake, barely processing reality. Maid asks about Brekkie, but he's like, nah, hard pass. He told her he's gotta go annoy his mom first. Priorities, people. Nanny looked shook, like she saw a ghost, then gushed over how sweet that was. So, off he goes to mom's crib. He busts in, and both his sis Regina and mom Owen stare like he's an alien. Regina's literally forced to ask what he's doing up before noon. Owen instantly snaps at her daughter for the shade. Honestly, fair, since the old Adri never gave a toss about the fam. Mom waves him in, acting all hyped to see her precious boy. Rewind 3 years to when the old count kicked the bucket. Mom Owen took it hard, basically bedridden from the trauma. Now it's just Adri Noen and Regina holding down House Callista. Even out in the boonies of Rosenbaum, they used to be but after Dad died, yeah, they lost all their clout fast. Broke level renting out soldiers just to buy groceries. Tragic. In the bad timeline, Hans came from Mom dies and Regina gets stuck with a mountain of debt. Hans grabs Mom's hand, swearing he won't be such a stranger. But she's like, don't stress yourself coming here too much. She knows running the place is already a total headache. Leaving the room, Hans vows to actually fix this mess for real. Suddenly, Alman the butler pops up saying some dude named Mr. Flynn is here to crash the party. Hans's brain buffers right. Alman was Aegeon's OG butler back then. Dude was a ride or die, always looking out for the staff. Literally used himself as a human shield when Adrien raged out. Stayed loyal, even though Adrien was a total nightmare boss. But this is when he quits and gets replaced by Sid. Sid was absolute trash, incompetent, and helped bankrupt the family. Since Alman is about to dip, Hans plots to stop it. Time to face the music with Flynn. Flynn manages the Callista lands. Also, major villain vibes. He treats the help like dirt, beats him up like he owns them. Totally gross. Hans lets him talk. And yup, Flynn pitched a replacement for Alman. Wants to eat Alman out the door, ASAP. Hans fakes surprise. Just like history said, he suggests Sid. Claims Sid is a pro, and basically, his brother. Sus? Before he can keep lying, Hans shuts him down. Hans grabs his head, trying not to lose his cool. He asks Flynn, did I just hear you right? Checking if he's seriously plotting to fire the good guy. Flynn thinks Hans is confused and acts all my bad. Then the dude digs into his pocket and pulls something out. Slips 10 gold coins into Hans's hand. Hans is just disgusted. Flynn's all, don't get your hands dirty with this mess, kid. He's totally plotted out how to squash the whole drama with a fake theft charge. Classic Flynn claims the paperwork is ready. Hans just stares at the 10 gold coins in his hand. A broke fam usually survives on 10 silver a month. So, 10 gold. That's rent for 20 months for a normie. 1 gold coin swaps for 20 silver ones. Flynn's just a manager with a tiny salary, so he shouldn't be rich. Hans knows this cash was totally swiped from the locals. It sucks that Adrien used to snatch up dirty bribes. Because of that junk, the whole estate got played by creeps like Flynn. Hans realizes Flynn didn't quit. He got kicked out. Everyone knew the guy was framed, but stayed hush. Hans was too young to get it. The whole truth just makes Hans want to barf. Voice low, Hans calls over Oswald, the night guard. Plot twist. Hans tells Oswald to cuff Flynn right now. He says Flynn tried to bribe and framed his servant for being trash. Hans wants Flynn tossed in the dungeon. Oswald moves fast. Flynn stands there, jaw on the floor. Flynn yells at Hans trying to talk his way out, but gets ghosted as Oswald drags him off. Hans drops the 10 gold coins, asking why he's in this body. He's clueless, but he knows the OG Odarine hurt a ton of people. But Hans isn't Ed, and he isn't chilling, while history repeats itself. In the hall, Oswald drags Flynn, calling him scum, and to walk faster. Oswald doesn't know what Flynn did, and honestly, doesn't care. Even Flynn is shook by this crazy can't believe he's jailed. Oswald's the last night in this messy house. Flynn always thought Adrien was the biggest loser since he's so easy to play. Now arrested, he wonders if Adrien finally grew a backbone. He doesn't get that, it's not the dumb Adrien in there anymore. Flynn bets Hans will fail, since life ain't a fairy tale. Oswald hauls Flynn to the dungeon and angrily eats him into the cell, not caring about his rank. Flynn whines about the roughness, but Oswald says, zip it till the boss decides. Just a heads up on the cast. Oswald's dad was a knight for the old count. Everyone else bailed, but he stayed, cause he's loyal. In jail, Flynn thinks he can still scam the Lord. He plans to trick him into firing Oswald. Flynn can't believe a basic knight like Oswald is acting tough. Flynn swears Adrien is nothing but just a 15-year-old slacker with 0 brain cells. Played him like a fiddle to hike taxes. Adrien just nodded. Flynn figures, the kid's just got a case of the Mondays, and some major sucking up will fix everything fast. He starts rehearsing his smooth talk in the mirror. Plan A. Fake laugh. Plan B. Grovel like a total loser. Midway through his cringe acting when Hans walks in. Hans' vibe is so scary. Flynn wonders if the kid evolved. Flynn hits the deck, begging like his life depends on it. Ice cold, Hans tells the guy to save his breath. Because crying won't work? It's court time for all crimes now. Hearing trial makes Flynn practically wet himself. Hans spins on his heel. Flynn starts sobbing loud. He tries his old mind games again. Desperate much. Screams, "I'm loyal," but Hans ghosts him hard. Flynn started from the bottom, reached boss level here. People thought he was a big deal. But now Mr. Big Shot is sweating buckets in court, busted for bribes, stealing cash, and being sketchy. He's gonna lose his loot and probably rot in a cell. This drama is absolutely shaking the locals of the hood. Warning to other shady bosses. Watch out. Even the house staff are losing their minds over the trial. Nobody's seen justice served in forever. Hans summons the crew. They're terrified, they're next. Ullman's like, "Everyone's here, boss." And sounding sad, Hans asks, "How's my rating, his lord?" They see his messes, so they'd know the real tea. Staff is stunned. Is this a trap? They're clueless, just praying they don't catch a slap or a beating. Crickets a Hans, breaks the awkward silence. Next part, totally floors every single person there. Hans bows deep and straight up, begs for a pardon. Confessisi was a total jerk for dumb reasons. Servants start murmuring, "Is this a prank?" Hans goes, "My sorry doesn't delete my past. Trash behavior, but I want to make it right." Adds that he's been a flaky mess running this place. He swears from now on, Callista's gonna be totally awesome for them. Step 1. Finally, treating his castle crew like actual humans. Hans spills the tea. He's fixing the whole mess. It'll get crazy, but he begs him to just vibe with him. After that speech, the staff is basically Later, Claude and Malene gossip about the vibe shift. Melon's like, "He literally hit me last week. Now he's chill." She's wondering if a glow-up that fast is even real. In his room, Hans gives Alman props and says he can bounce. But Alman chills there and just bows his head. Hans is confused until Alman admits he knows the boss saved him from Flynn's lies. Hans tells the dude to lift his chin up. They go way back. He just did the right thing. He grabs Alman's hand. "If anyone tries to frame you again, snitch to me." Hearing that, Alman finally accepts the boss isn't a jerk anymore. He's been working here over 10 years. Even if he looks the same, the vibe is totally new. Alman is fully Team Hans now and promises to stick around. Later, Hans is brooding by his bedroom window, just thinking about how wild things are. He got a redo and the fancy Count Callista title. He basically runs this whole place. Plus, he knows 15 years of spoilers. Good thing he already grinded these skills in his past life. Time to use those cheats to win. First mission. Protect his squad. That means his family and the help. He wants everyone living their best life. No class drama. But he can't do squat unless he upgrades the town. Hans starts brainstorming. Hard for any future hacks that could help. Boom. He remembers the Dragon Lair rumors. He gets super hype realizing he just hit the jackpot. He needs to find that lair. Hans wastes zero time getting started. He rallies the servants to hunt for the spot. Days later, Oswald begs him to chill cause he looks dead. Hans says nope, grabs a water pouch, and chugs it. He apologizes for making everyone grind so hard. He's been out there for days and won't quit. To the staff, he's just inspecting land, but he's secretly hunting the dragon spot. Dragons are basically the smartest, most OP creatures ever. Dragons are basically god-tier beasts. They ghosted ages ago, but finding their cribs still breaks the internet. Mostly cause heaps of bling are stashed in their lairs. And Hans is hip to a secret lair hidden in the mountains. Turns out the Rosenbaum Emperor is just a puppet. The Townsends and McCarthys are the Empire's main pillars. They keep the whole place from totally crashing and burning. Compton Mountain sits between hiding that dragon crib. Naturally, major beef started between the two families over who gets dibs on the lair. The Callistas, stuck on the edge, sent goons to back the Townsends. Stuck in the past, Hans has 15 years to find the good. He ditches his crew and books it deep into the woods. Legend says dragons hoard insane piles of gold, plus jewels. Enough bling to buy a kingdom, supposedly. Hans knows grabbing that spot will stabilize everything. Nobody knows the location, but the hype went viral fast. Rumor says some random herbalist found it first. Dude got lost in the trees and found it by total accident. Hans figures, it's obvious enough he won't miss it. He keeps looking, but hours later, he is totally gassed. Zero luck. Not even a single clue pointing the way. Now he's thinking that plant guy was lying through his teeth. Sun's dipping, so he decides to call it quits. He's wrecked. Andre's bod is super weak. Gotta hit the gym later. Meanwhile, the servants are screaming his name. Aqua. Hans feels kinda bad for stressing them out, just a little. He considers asking for backup to find the sweet spot. But nah, gotta keep this on the down low. Top secret. Finding it could start a war, so he has to be slick. Suddenly, Hans zones out way too hard and slips right off a cliff. He faceplants, hurt but alive. Now he is stuck hanging halfway down the rock face, and his life totally just flashed before his eyes. Ribs are busted, and he is panicking about the climb up. He drags himself up and spots a weird hole in the mountain. Checking the shape, he realizes, jackpot, dragon lair. It is smack in the cliff face. Who builds a door there? Crazy. Hans bets some guardian creature used this entrance. You know, those scary things that babysit dragons. The jagged rocks kept this place totally invisible. He found the loot, but how the heck does he get home? No chance Oswald spots him down here. He is invisible. Hans preps for doom as he walks into the fancy hall. Bam! Golden magic circle, right in the center. He steps in and boom all, his boo-boos vanish instantly. Hans is shook. Wasn't this place supposed to be empty? He wonders if the room has some auto-heal cheat code on. He is pumped. That healing trick alone is worth big bucks. Hans nearly loses his cool completely. Hans starts daydreaming, but quickly slaps himself awake. Time to loot the place and see what makes this lair tick. Since he time traveled into a stranger's body, this hideout is a total jackpot. He spots for doors nearby, all linking back to the hub. The layout is sick, digging deep like a giant ant farm. Snooping around, he stumbles onto a massive library. Guess dragons love playing human, chilling with books like nerds. Looking around, it's obvious, this crib is totally styled for people bedroom, study, the works. No shiny loot piles yet, contrary to the gossip, but he knows the real prize is hiding somewhere. Best find so far. The middle zone, buzzing with heal. He dubs it the healing hall. Creative, right? It's a huge deal since healing arts are basically extinct. Finally, he creeps into the last unchecked room. He walks in and freezes. A literal gold dragon is napping there. No way. This can't be real life. History says dragons bit the dust 100 years ago. So, this giant lizard has to be a dead body. But do corpses usually stay this shiny and fresh? He pokes it, and boom, blinding light explodes everywhere. It's way too intense, forcing him to scramble back. The glow rushes into him, and a voice echoes in his skull. Totally confused, he sees a dude in fancy royal robes appear. Freaking out, Hans stammers, "Who are you?" The guy's vibe is definitely not normal. Clearly, not human. The stranger speaks up. "I am Sa." He claims to be the final boss, leader of the Gold Clan, and the last dragon alive. Hans is shook. He's chatting with a literal legend. He asks if Saffred owns the place, but gets a history lesson instead. Saffred says that big gold body is just an empty shell. This voice? Just leftover magic. He saved on a hard drive. Hanzo looks lost. So, the dragon guy keeps going, "We dragons used to run this world," he brags, "but we got messy with drama and wiped each other out." Eventually, Saffred was the only one left standing. Loneliness was fine since dragons are solo players, but he hated the thought of dragon magic hitting 0%, so he made a massive call to upload his wisdom to the first smart kid who found this base. He actually died in year 300, setting this spell to expire after 500 years. If nobody showed up for 500 years, he'd be dust. Game over. Safid wasn't vibing with that, but he accepted his doom. Luckily, Hans stumbled in to take the reins. The big lizard just wants magic to stick around for the newbies. Hans is like, "Bro, I can't even cast a spark." Says wizards are basically extinct, so learning is gonna be a pain. The dragon cracks up when Hans drops that line, leaving the kid totally confused. Scaly dude points at Hans's chest. "You're the chosen one, dummy." Poke. Boom. Hans is suddenly back in the cave. He's blinking, wondering if he just hallucinated the whole chat. Peeps, the room yup. Dragon body is officially toast. Then it hits him. He's got a bonus heart thumping on his right side. Besides his normal ticker, he feels something spicy, like smoky, supercharged magic battery juice. Suddenly, the dragon's brain cloud starts downloading into hum. Total info overload. He gets 0% of it right now. One thing clicks though. He can speak dragon now. Human mages need forever to prep a spell. Yapping endlessly. Dragon style. One word. Boom. Done. Since this LP magic needs serious juice, Hansi knows his new secondhand heart can handle it. Thanks to this cheat code, he shouts, "Fly," and zips right to the mountain peak. But wow, that drained his mana bar completely. The new gear isn't synced yet, so his battery life sucks. No stress though. He knows it'll upgrade as he levels up. Eventually, he'll have the stats to toss around god-tier magic like it's nothing. He meets his crew. They were freaking out and swarm him. After calming them down, the squad packs up for home. Hans is stoked. He really scored big on this trip. Went for a cave, came back as a dragonair. Epic win. Then he remembers what Scaly said about that. Preservation spell lasting 500 years. He does the math. 1 year later, magic would have been extinct. In his past life, they found the lair 15 years late. Total waste. Most wizards can barely pass. Level 2, Level 5 guys are basically celebrities. But dragons, they spun it, max level, circle 9 right out of the egg. That's a level humans can't even dream of touching. But for Hans, with these buffs, level 9 is totally doable. Back at the crib, his sis is waiting, looking super stressed. Sis went full nag mode on him, ghosting and freaking everyone out. Seeing his shredded fit, she asked if Bandage jumped him, but Hans was like, chill, I'm totally He admitted he got hit, but he's all healed up now. Oswald hit his knees, begging forgiveness for failing the boss. Sis threw shade at the old guy too, but Hans killed the drama, swearing he's okay. Hans escaped to his room and sighed hard. He knows Oswald and Butler Ullman are totally loyal. Hans is hyped to have Ullman and Oswald by his side since they'll always have his back. Hans called Elman, who showed up instantly. Hans apologized for the super late summons. He asked for the staff list and pay sheet from earlier. Ullman said it's ready, but doubted he'd check it. Now, he reminded Hans that it is super late. Plus, he heard about Hans's crash. But Hans told the dude he's totally solid. He demanded the papers. Ignoring Ullman's protests, he thinks his staff's well-being is a major priority, so he gotta handle it ASAP. Knowing Hans wouldn't budge, Ullman went to get the docs. Then, Hans fished some gold coins from his pocket. He then asked Elman if he knew Grace. Claude hit up Lone at the market to place orders. Claude handed over the list, leaving her totally shook. Asked if it was tough, but Lone said, no sweat. She was just shook because she was so happy. Hans's new rules totally changed the turf. Taxes got slashed and estate orders skyrocketed. Locals finally feel like life is actually worth it. A vibe none of them ever thought they'd feel. Lone gave the receipt and promised delivery by evening. Surprisingly, she tossed Claude 2 apples before he left. Said the apples were props for serving the Lord well. She bet his help made the Lord turn out so chill. Claude then zoomed back to the estate. He spotted Malene out picking herbs. Claude grinned hard, hugging his 2 free apples. He gave Malene one. She asked where he snagged it. He said Lone gave it, leaving Malene totally shook. Lone's usually a stingy granny, but she's changed. Claude added that a ton of stuff has changed. Fling got busted, plus all the shady officials got it too. Hans soloed the boring estate books to find the shady deals. Every cent of that sketchy tax cash got refunded to the people, servants included. The staff got a total glow-up, raises, breaks, and fresh drip. Plus, the castle isn't on total lockdown anymore. Thanks to the new vibes, the crew can actually touch grass, like Malene and Claude. Claude clocks that Malene is hyping up the boss. Yo, he was literally toxic last week. Bro ain't buying this sudden character arc. Malene feels that, but drops a truth bomb. Whenever she sees Hans, the vibes just hit different now. With all the updates, she's ready to uncancel him. Claude hits her with the real question. You forgiving him cause he's hot? She denies it as they head back. They chat about how Hansa has been ghosting everyone. Trying to spot him is harder than finding a rare shiny. He caps about inspections, but he's sneaking off to the lair. Deep inside, Hans is on that solo magic grind. He's unlocked fireballs and the shield buff now. It's been nearly a month since he snagged the dragon hacks, and his training streak is solid. His stats are up, and he knows he'll only get more But there's one thing that's totally bugging him. Riding a horse all the way there, just to train as a drag. The lair is buffed with magic, so he can't wreck it. Ideally, it's the ultimate spot to flex his powers. But man, the commute needs a fast travel option. He knows the fix. A teleport spell called Warp Gate. It lets you zip straight to a saved spawn point. Problem is, Warp Gate is super height, like 7th circle, difficulty level. Hans can't cast that yet. He's only level 2 or 3. Still cracked though, the Empire's Grand Mage is stuck at 5. To unlock the big moves, he needs to master the short-range blink skill first. He's been spamming it for days but keeps failing. He runs it one more time, and boom, it actually works. He glitches forward just a bit from his spot. Just as he's hyping himself up, everything goes white. He feels a weird glitch coming from the dragon heart. He looks up and catches Saffred staring him down. Not bad, says the dragon. You cleared the tutorial. As a reward, Saffred unlocks a fresh zone in the lair to help him level up faster. Better stats mean better loot. Hans asks, why hide it? Dragon says, had to keep the greedy noobs away from my stash. Safid pushes Hans to keep grinding so his magic stats don't flatline. After chatting, Hans realized the dragon was totally legit. Then, boom, he finds a hidden magic room full of loot. Guess the rumors about dragon hordes were real. Plus, Safid said he'd unlock more goodies as he leveled up. Hans spots a book all about fancy artifacts. Basically, items with perma-magic buffs infused in them. They're super rare now since magic is practically dead, and Hans is too low level to craft them himself. Realizing the shelf is basically an artifact wiki, he looks around and clicks everything. Here is an artifact. There are 10 magical items chilling in the room, each with its own instruction manual. Thanks to the guides, Hans picks the best loot. For now, first pick, the spring afternoon, Some 7th Circle mage crafted it for his sick wifey. It's got healing vibes. Not super strong, but the vitality boost is perfect for his mom. Second item, Dance of Shadows. Crafted by Berestein, the red dragon. Looks basic, but works like a charm. Hands equips it, and a red aura pops up. It's got crazy stealth stats, making him basically a ghost. Mirror shows nothing. Footsteps. Silent mode. He feels weightless, like zero gravity. Hans is hyped because this gear is up. And the third toy, Grabs, is the Breath of Earth. It's snake-shaped, made by Safid himself. It gives him what he needed most, teleportation. Now he can use warp. The spawn point is set to the lair. He can sneak out without his sis or Alma noticing. Travel time, delete. Training's gonna be a breeze. Hans is totally loving the grind. Post-training, he hops on his horse to head back. He knows this is the last. Slow trip to Compton. Since he can fast travel now, he thinks the place is empty. Then back. Troops? Hans is shook to see soldiers there. He introduces himself as the Lord and asks the leader why they invaded his turf, unannounced. The head knight's a total jerk, treating Hans like a toddler. So, this guy's totally buying the rumors that Callista's boss is just a total kiddo. Enter Count Pete Ross, head honcho of the First Knights. Hans isn't vibing with the little kid shade. He claps back. We're both counts, bro, same rank. Deal with it. Rules say we gotta keep it formal, age aside. Pete's shook that Hans stood up to him. Hans asks, so, what's your business here anyway? Pete's like, no time to waste, and gets real immediately. Spills the tea. Count Rodriguez went rogue. Knights are hunting him down for the chopping block. Flashes an emperor-signed note to prove he's legit. Royal orders say Hans gotta help out and lend his stuff for the manhunt. Name drops, and Hans Clixie totally knows Lakia D. Rodriguez. Dude was a sword genius. Hitmaster rank at 6, crazy skills. But he got dragged into fam drama and died super tragically. Rumor has it, he and the emperor were BFFs since diapers. Things got weird when Princey took the throne. McCarthy and Townsend played the naive ruler like a fiddle. They wiped out anyone who actually had the emperor's back. That's when Rodriguez got framed. Total setup. He died, but 5 years later, oops, turns out he was innocent. Name cleared, but too late, his whole fam was already gone. Empire just felt bad for losing such a pure genius to some messy political power trip. Knowing the lore, Hans is like, gotta save him this time? Pete sees Hans spacing out and snaps him back. Says Lakia's hurt and bailed into the mountains. Hans agrees to help, but says, let's wrap it up. It's getting dark. He swears they'll restart the hunt tomorrow morning. Pete gets cocky. My squad can handle one injured guy. Hans drops a reality check. Compton Mountains ain't a joke. Horses are useless. Plus, Pete's crew is clunky in all that heavy armor. He points out, look, your guys are already toast. Insists the only smart play is an early start tomorrow. Hans remembers this exact vibe from his past life, helping the townsfolk. Those mountains are brutal terrain, and Hans admits he only found the spot with hacks and luck before. Finding a hurt dude there in one day, nearly impossible. Once he actually, after distracting Pete, Hans dips to find Leo. He blasts a magic scan, and boom, spots lock. He rushes over and finds him code and mess. He's wrecked, and Hans ain't got no healing skills yet, so he spams the spring afternoon item. Weak buff, but way better than zilch. Slaps the ring on him, and it starts glowing. Hans casts a weight loss cheat to carry him to the horse. Hans was dead set on being Lakia's hero today. He loads Lakia up and floors it back to base. Pulling up, he sees Pete's squad beat him there. Yikes. Big ugly Imperial flag is already flying out front. Hans keeps his cool to outplay them. He pops an invisibility cloak so they ghost the scene. Town's plastered with Lakia's mugshots. Even the locals are shook by the drama. The poster leaks all Lia's info. Shows his blue peepers and gray hair. Inside, Pete's still toxic. He hates the castle vibes and starts wrecking the place. Says the place would make a better cheap motel. He and his goons cackle at these lame burns while Claude passes out drinks. Pete starts bullying the staff too. Claims the water is trash. Poor Claude has to beg for mercy. Regina enters the chat, telling Pete to chill with the violence. She's like, we weren't ready for your massive entourage, bruh. So he needs to stop whining about the service. Pete gives her the stink eye and asks, who are you? Regina drops her name, but Pete is not impressed. He thinks it's a joke that kids run this joint. Says kids should be napping while grown-ups handle business. He calls Regina a total fail, which triggers her. She snaps back that she's the boss here, so show some respect. Pete's shocked. She clapped back just like Haynes. He turns away, figuring the whole fam is full of attitude. Regina is losing it, and Loki wishes her bro would appear. Meanwhile, Hansen's walked to his room unseen, totally saved by that magic bling. He totally walked in on Regina and Pete's drama. Hans swears he'll fix it after sorting Lakia out. The way it's going, total mess, and Hans knows it. Lakia's mugshot is everywhere. Dude has 0 chill spots left. Hans totally forgot the castle would be crawling with knights. Lakia's wrecked. He needs a healer. Like, yesterday. Hans is freaking out cause Lakia looks like he's about to game over. Suddenly, Malene busts in, totally ready to scrub the place. She skipped knocking, thinking it was empty. Oops, Hans alert. She's like, my bad. Had 0 clue you were here. Boss. Hans stays chill but goes, chill, keep it down. Perfect timing. He figures he can totally use this. He whispers, go grab Almond. Ninja stealth mode. Bam. Ammon's there in 2 seconds. He's shook. Wait, aren't you supposed to be on tour? Ammon's like, bro, hit the lobby. You're needed. Hans hits pause. Nah, you guys gotta see this first. He points to his bed where Lakia's passed out cold. Jaws drop. That's a literal wanted fugitive right there. Almond goes, you catch him. Hans is like, nah, he's cool. Hans claims the dude got totally framed, but says, can't spill all the tea just yet. He's shielding him. I need backup. Hans admits. They just stare, totally lost for words. Hans gets why they're freaking out right now. Why's a small fry lord messing with big scary families? Plus, Almond and Malene are basically just the help. Their job is literally, yes sir, no sir, to VIPs. Technically, they could snitch to Pete right now. Whatever. Hans ignores the danger. He tells Malene, you're on nurse duty in my room. She's like, I failed med school 101 though. Hans goes, chill. Just clean cuts and feed him snacks. Do it, and I'll make it rain, cash for you. Then he turns to Almond. Need a huge solid bro. He goes, find me a dead body that looks like him. Same build, gray hair, make it match. Eye color's a bonus, but don't sweat it too much. Ammon's totally floored. Hans gets it though. It's a crazy ask, but he's gotta save Leah. Period. He knows they still think he's kinda sus, cause people don't just reboot overnight, right? To them, he's just a scary, spoiled, rich kid. He's worried this crazy plan might make them snitch. Just gotta hope they buy his new me vibe. Trust me, Hans begs. Then, Almond finally speaks up. He's like, yeah, noble ranks are a thing. Emperor's orders are top tier. But honestly, ... I only ride for one boss. Count Callista, that's it. Hans is totally shook by that level of loyalty. Almond asks, blink if you're being forced, okay? He asks if Hans chose to save Leia on his own. Hans gets Almond's vibe since Flynn said a kid his age gets rattled weight is. Almond insists on checking for outside meddling before saying yes to him. Seeing how loyal Almond is, Hans hates that Adrian ghosted such a legend. Hans finally replies, promising it was his own call. He says it's for the good of the hood and the people. Confirmation got. Almond bows his head, vowing to snag the body just like Hans asked. Malene jumps in too, promising to do her best. Hans is stoked he got them both on his team. Soon, knights try to raid Owen's room, but Regina blocks the door. She says it's her mom's room and tells them to beat it. Luckily, Hans rolls up just in time to step in. He asks, why bring swords into a sick lady's room? Rude. The guard says he heard the fam was cool with helping. Hans agrees but reminds him they didn't say yes to a search. Giving beds and guys to hunt the traitor counts as helping. He asks the guard if there's any rules saying they gotta raid the castle. Knowing he lost, the soldier has to back off. Regina's happy to see him and asks if he's safe with that traitor loose. Hans says he's chill and apologizes for the late arrival. He also gives her props for handling the Pete drama. Regina shook cause Hans was supposedly away when she talked to Pete. Hans knows he messed up but changes the topic fast before she digs. He tells his sis they should go in and check on Mom. Inside, Mom warns the kids to watch out for the creeping traitor. She tells them to play nice with the knights to avoid drama. She has no clue Hans already crossed that line. Hans promises Mom he sent troops to help, and since the traitor's hurt, he'll be caught soon. Then Hans lies about meeting an old foreign lady while traveling. He says he helped the old gal, and she gave him a ring with special vibes. Hans swears the ring will totally fix her health over time. Oh, and her kid usually thinks myths are totally sus. Hans is like, chill Mom, just take the sparkly bling. He slips it on her finger and boom, magic kicks in. Owen instantly flashes a crazy grin, saying she feels epic. Regina is totally floored. She squints at the rock. Whoa, yellow sapphire. Even she can tell this glittery thing costs big bucks. Only Hans knows the real crazy price tag. Here if folks knew it's worth more than a castle. Riots. Next day, Lakia is still on the mend. Hans and Malene are swapping guard duty. Mel's got the day shift. Hans owns the night. Ex-servant life means all-nighters are a total breeze. But zero tiredness, thanks to that dragon heart juice. He's chilled up, just stressing big time over luck. Will that gas heal solo? He has zero clue. Clean the gunk. but the cut is super gnarly. Suddenly, 5 knocks rattle the wooden door. It's a secret code he cooked up with Mel. 5 taps mean it's safe. Can't let the maid snoop. Mel walks in, clutching a bunch of weeds. Hans blinks. She's like, for the nasty cut outside, magical greens to kill germs and fix skin fast. Hans is stunned. Since when are you a plant nerd? She says, Dad grew him. I watched and learned stuff. Hans snaps his fingers. Right. She once bragged to the crew about brewing fancy leaf tea. Thought she just brewed chai, not full-on med care. She mashes the green, slaps it on, and bandages him. Hans is stoked. She's practically a support class. Fingers crossed her skills actually save the guy. Days drag on. Dude is still snoozing super hard. 5 days of hustling, but he's still out cold. Later, Mel pops by the room and totally freaks out. The bed's empty. Dude vanished. She bolts for Hans. Sneaky Lockie is awake, behind a chair. Hide in there, our boy. Here's soldiers shouting major news. Outside, found Lakia's corpse in the hills. They yell. Lakia gasps. Suddenly, Hans is right there chilling. Snuck up using his cheat code stealth gear. Yo, Lakia, Hans says. You're up early, buddy. Real talk. Hans already knew he was awake. Dragon senses tingled. He heard the breathing switch up. He stayed quiet, 'cause faking a snooze was totally just his way of sussing things out. Hans isn't shook. When you're on the run, paranoia is basically survival. Bet Lakia freaked out when he woke up in a random room with 2 total strangers playing nurse. Hans gets the vibe. The guy is clearly ready to bolt or fight. Proof Lakia is pointing a literal charcoal stick at him like a sword. He's yelling, "Who are you?" and checking if Hans is with the soldiers outside. Hans tries to chill Gaiak, but Leah warns him to keep his distance. Chill out, bro, Hans says. You're still beat up. He pushes for a sit-down so he can actually explain the mess. Lakia sits, but keeps that weapon handy just in case Hans tries anything sketchy. Hans knows that his whole vibe and how he spills the tea is the only way to prove he isn't some secret assassin. Hans drops the truth bomb. Lakia listens, then immediately asks about the body. He is totally floored that the dead guy the soldiers found was just a decoy Hans set up. Hans nods. Yeah, I put your clothes and ring on it. Make overtime? Then he hits him with a sorry for borrowing your stuff without asking first. Lakia snaps back. Pete knows my face. He won't fall for a dummy. I know. Hans smirks. That's why I made it airtight. It's August and raining. Swamp water made that body unrecognizable fast. The nights were totally fried from scouring the woods, and Pete. He just wanted to clock out early. Boom. Hans successfully punked Pete and his squad. Hans tells him, lay low for 5 years. I'll clear your name. He suggests camping out in this territory for the 5-year stretch. Lakia gets defensive. Wait, how do you know I didn't do it? He thinks Hans is in on it. Hans is like, secret's safe with me. For now, Lakia presses. What happens in 5 years? Hans zips his lips. Just trust me. Lakia isn't buying it. Thanks for the save. Lakia starts. But I can't trust my life to a guy keeping secrets. Hans nods. Totally fair point. The guy got backstabbed by everyone and labeled a traitor. Everyone looks like an OP to Lakia now. Hans needs a better play. So, Hans casts an illusion. Boom, new hair, and eye color for Leah. Leah's jaw drops. That shouldn't be possible. Hans just dropped a high-tier illusion right in his face. Plus, he did it silent, no chanting at all. Even Imperial mages can't pull that off. And Hans did it effortlessly. Hans sees Lakia glitching out and snaps his fingers. Hey, focus. Look, I got secrets, Hans admits, and I get why you're paranoid. But then Hans looks him in the eye and promises the guy he's not out to hurt him or the big boss. Hans pleads his case, and after a tense pause, Lakia is like, fine, I trust you. For now, Hans is stoked. Finally, the guy isn't looking at him like a snack anymore. Rumor had it that Lakia was totally soft, but Hans figures all the drama lately turned him hard. He imagines a nightmare scenario where a savage predator hunts him down. Later, Pete brings news of Lakia's death to the big boss emperor. He expects a party, but the ruler's reaction is totally chill. Weird. Pete jogs the emperor's memory about Lakia's savage plot to poison the whole royal just to hype Pete up a bit. The king fakes a smile and acts like he's totally thrilled. Once he got the praise he was fishing for, Pete bounces. As soon as he's gone, the emperor completely loses it. He clutches his head, totally miserable, wishing he could hit the undo button on everything. Right there in his feels, the emperor swears he'll fix Lakia's rep no matter what. Meanwhile, in Callista, Lakia is slowly getting the hang of his new crib. Hans introduced him as the new muscle. So when Hans calls a squad meeting, Lakia tags along. Regina's there too, but she's giving Lakia major side. She asks Amund if the guy's legit, and Amund swears he's perfectly chill. Omen fibs, claiming Hans scouted Lakia while out on a trip. Then Amund asks Regina what's actually eating her. She says, it's nothing specific, just the way the dude carries himself. Regina thinks he acts way too fancy, like a noble, which totally freaks her out. Why would a guy with that posh vibe end up guarding a nowhere town like Callista? They pause the Lakia gossip for a sec to discuss why Hans summoned them, but neither has a clue what's up. Lakia, meanwhile, thinks it's cool how hard Hans is trying to keep his secret on the down low. Only Hans, Malene, and Amon actually know who he really is, out of everyone in the place. Lia's stressing about the whole castle crew, but the one he's really sweating over is Hans, who just walked in. He's actually shook by how Hans runs the show here. Hans took charge at 12 with 0 experience, which is nuts. But Lakia has to hand it to him for the fake body trick. Plus, the kid handles people like a pro. Lakia honestly feels like Hans is way more grown up than him with how he operates. He digs how the castle is managed to. Every single servant is doing their job with a genuine grin, something you never see back in the big city. It blows Lakia's mind that a 15-year-old kid runs this joint. He's just left wondering, who even is this dude? 10 minutes in, and Hans has already sketched out something wild on the board. The whole room gasps when Hans drops the bomb. He's opening a bank. Lia yells at him, saying you need deep pockets to start a bank. He warns that tons of folks went broke, trying that risky hustle. But Hans just chills and says he knows why they flopped. He explains a bank isn't just about grabbing land or cash. Hans points out that the real headache is putting together a squad that doesn't suck. He says to run a bank, you need geeks who can handle assets and judge investments. Plus, they need number crunchers and tough guys to guard the loot. Hans admits Callista has 0 chance of snagging pros like that without an inside track. So, he drops his master plan. Start a school to train their own homies right here. He wants to split it into a math track and a muscle track. While he's breaking all this down, it hits Hans totally big-brained every single angle of this. But Laki is like, nah bro, thinking the plan is way too out there. Then Regina hits him with a solid reality check. She tells her bro that regular peeps can't pay school fees cause usually only rich snobs go there. Hans gets the vibe, but he's already got a fix cooked up. Spoiler alert, he ain't charging a dime for classes. Almond's jaw drops teaching norms for free. Wild. But Hans goes, nope, you got it twisted. To him, they aren't just students. They're trainees, so he's actually gonna pay them. Hans grins like, yeah, we pay them to learn. The squaddleman, Regina Lee, is absolutely shook. Leah sees his deadpan face and knows he's legit. Soon, Almond gathers the help and spills the tea. He breaks down the school plan to back Callista Bank. Per Hans' orders, the first batch of students comes from the staff crew. Almond asks, who's in? Claude shoots his hand up first with cues. He's gotta know if they really get paid to study, and Almond says, for real. But their regular pay dips a bit while in school. Almond swears they'll still survive just fine. The staff starts buzzing and whispering instantly. Most are hyped. Even the non-bookworms want in on security. Claude is totally floored by Hans' crazy moves lately. Schools are for rich kids, so how's a normie like him gonna learn math? Malene pokes him. Dude, you're a math whiz. Plus, he's solid with handling errands. She says go for it, but Claude's feeling major imposter syndrome. He thinks servant studying won't change a thing. Millen thinks, then drops a bomb. She's leaving the manor. That hits hard. She says she helped Hans, so he's paying for her med school. Melina was scared she'd flop, but with all this hype, she's taken the leap. She recalls how Luke thanked her for saving him, which meant the world. That moment hyped her up to do bigger things. Even if it's wild, she wants to shoot her shot. Since she's jumping in, she tells Claude to join. Her words hit home, and Claude knows she's right. So, Claude signs up for the accounting class. But he's still nervous, wondering if he'll crash and burn. Since he just got a raise, he wonders if he should have just stayed home and cashed in. When Claude hands in his exam to Poutier, the teacher gives him major props for crushing it. Claude plays it cool, acting humble, but the prof insists his skills are actually insane. He says, basic math is basic, but bookkeeping, that is a rare talent. Even genius nobles struggle with this stuff, yet Claude nailed it perfectly. Poutier admits he was super about teaching here, but seeing Claude crush it gave him hope. He bets it all that Claude is going to be a legendary accountant one day. Claude's kinda iffy at first, but then he recalls how hard Hans is grinding for their sake. So, Claude vows to level up and become the absolute best. At training, Hans is shook seeing students getting punished by Lakia roasts the group, calling them total trash. Turns out, 30 minutes ago, they walked in with huge egos. They ran their mouths until he humbled them with a solid beat. Now that he proved he is boss level, the students have to obey every command. Lakia isn't feeling it, telling Hans that, accounting might be chill. The security squad is just straight up. He thinks training these losers is a total waste of his XP. Seeing Lakia has 0 motivation. Help! Hans drags him aside for a quick heart-to- Hans hypes up Lakia's resume, mentioning how he taught the Emperor sword skills. Lakia claims he only pulled that off cause the boss was actually ready to grind. He asks if Hans is equating the king to scrubs, but Hans denies it. Hans clarifies, he's just saying, Lakia is a top-tier mentor. Callista has no knights, and Oswald is the only one left, but he's too ancient to teach. Then Hans drops a truth bomb. He tells Lakia the king isn't different from regular folks. People are just people, whether they got titles or not. The only difference is having someone spot their potential and help them level up. And right now, Hans knows Lakia is the MVP for this gig. That speech hits Lakia right in the feels. He realizes Hans is way more serious than he thought. So, Lakia tells Hans he's gonna need more time and loot. Hans is just like, bro, whatever you need, I gotcha. Lakia catches Hans getting way too cozy with the chat. He used to be a nervous wreck, but now, totally chill. Hans says, you're solid, man. That's why I can relax. Lakia is done with the praise and dips back to the training grounds. Fast. He gets there and is like, whoa, shocked, but impressed. The noobs are basically statues, frozen exactly where he left him before his chat with Hans. Lakia has a brain blast, recalling Hans's spiel. Folks are just NPCs till you unlock their skills. He smirks. That vibe check hits hard, and he decides to finally go all in on training these scrubs. Yo, on your feet. He barks at the squad. He preaches that they need more than just swole bods or fake hype. They need straight up guts. He's actually low-key impressed they didn't rage quit even after taking a beat. Keep that energy, he insists, telling them to remember the grind. And just like that, class is officially in session. Lakia thought his next 5 years would be a total snooze fest. But this gig, it actually slaps. So, way back in the year 853, Callista Academy dropped to hype up the new Callista Bank. 2 tracks. Math nerds and muscleheads. Locals only, no royals allowed. Then, faster than a viral trend. 3 whole years just zoomed on by since day 1. 3 years later, Hans's mom is glowing up big time thanks to that magic loot. She finally exits her room first time in forever. Regina's stressing, but mom's like, chill, I'm Gucci. She just missed the fresh air and really wanted to go touch grass. Feeling stoked, Owen asks Regina to tag along for a stroll. Past 3 years saw Owen power up and other cool stuff go down in the hood. Meanwhile, greedy tax dudes hit a lady up demanding mega cash. She's shook. No way she can drop that kind of dough right now. The drama between her and the suits drags on, until her kid strolls out of the house like a total boss. Plot twist, it's Claude, and he's a straight-up math wizard now. 3 years of grinding later, he's dripping in fancy gear, not rags. He boldly schools the scammers on the new tax rate. They try to clap back, but realize he's actually got the receipts. Low-income fams get a discount. Duh. Since his mom fits the bill, Claude shuts him down hard. The suits have to bail, but Claude throws shade before they go. Try this again, and I'm snitching to corporate. Watch it. They scramble like headless chickens, nodding wildly as they run. Once they dip, Claude sighs. Total bummer. That trashy people still run things around here. Mom's freaking out, but Claude's all, relax, I got this. She doesn't want him beefing with the feds, scared of payback, but Claude's like, Hans has our backs. We're totally fine. Back at the castle, a newbie maid knocks on Hans's door. Crickets. She keeps spamming the knock until a vet maid pulls up. The senior points to the big X on the door. Read the room? Hun. That X means do not disturb, mode is on. No exceptions. The rookie gaffs. What's he doing? The vet shrugs. Who knows? Top secret stuff. Then she leans in and adds ... no entry when the sign is up. Not even Lakia gets in. Secretly, sign up means Hans ghosted to his lair to grind. He levels up and chats with Scythe after 3 years. Dragon Bro is super hyped on his gains. Hans hits circle 6. Even court mages fail at 5. Scythe peeps that Hans totally synced with the dragon heart beating. Inside, now he can cast some Dragon pats his head. Big growth for 3 years. Kid. Scythe asks about students. Hans is totally confused. Scythe's like, all the top tier mages always teach. Pass on the vibes. You know, get some students. But he promises. No pressure though. It's your power. Do whatever. For 3 years, Hans unlocked loot rooms. Stacks of treasure everywhere. Sure, he could sell the loot and get rich. But nah, that ain't the legacy Scythe left behind. Hans spills the beans. I'm building a bank. Scythe thinks loan shark, but Hans is like, no way. Hans swears once the bank pops off. He gets funds, he'll start a magic school for the legacy. Hans roasts the current schools. Total fashion accessories. Bruh, nobody tries. Circle 2 is impossible these days. Magic isn't taught. Everyone thinks it's ancient history, but with Scythe's juice pumping through him, Hans is gonna bring magic back. He'll get tons of students and keep the magic alive. Scythe loves it. Send it, kiddo. Hans flies out, scoping his turf from the sky, stoked that the last 3 years went so smooth. Bank prep, also crushing it. Then he recalls Lakia asking for armor and swords. Since the squad is scrapping with people, they need gear. Hans agrees. Callista used to be safe, so they slacked. But now, things changed, so Hans knows they gotta prep for war ASAP. Hans scans the peaks, hoping to snag iron for the next big plan. While scanning the spot, he peeps a gold glow far off. Totally new to him, so he's hooked. He heads over and finds a hurt kitty monster, passed out cold. Hans zaps the injured critter with some healing mojo. He scoops up the cute fluff ball, thinks mine, and hauls it home. Big mistake. The kitty wasn't just a petite, morphed into a dude right in his room. Rewinding a bit, post-rescue mission, the furball faded fast, so Hans bolted to his secret lair for a serious magic recharge. He skipped, using this spot with Lakia to keep his hideout under wraps. But for a random stray, totally fine. He flops the cat into the glowing ring and boom, healed. He figured the guy would bounce back in 10 minutes. Nope, the dude snoozed for 3 straight hours. Stuck Hans dragged the cat home, planning to boot it later. Gotta be quick the next morning, since he and Lakia, his guard bro, always grab breakfast. Hans tucked the kitty into bed for maximum cozy vibes. I'm alarmed, Hans screaming his lungs out. Lakia hears it. He sprints over, banging on the door like a maniac. Hans barricades it, brain frying at the sight inside. That cute stray he saved. Yeah, it morphed into a whole dude while he slept, hence the freakout. Just a spider bro. Hans lies to get Lakia to bail. He promises they'll grab food later. Then he spins around. Who are you Clueless. Hans stares until the guy poofs back into a cat. Suspicions confirmed. He's totally a beast. Cat folks are this secret species that ghost the human world completely. Ancient as elves, but way better at hiding. You never see them because they're super paranoid. 0 human contact means 0 info on them. Cat dude struts around and decides, I live here now. Hans's jaw drops. Didn't say you could crash here. He tries to argue, but the guy's like, you brought me here? Genius? Claims Hans kidnapped him and fixed him up uninvited. So basically, I'm your problem now. Buddy, this dude is manipulative and super slick. Hans snaps back. You would have croaked without me. Since cat folks are total tanks with mad strength, no human could have dusted him. So, Hans asks, another cat guy beat you up. The guy freezes up. Silence. Hans pushes for details. When Lakia kicks the door in, jump scare. Lakia sees the stranger and instantly draws steel. Back off, kitty boy, he snaps. Lakia zooms to Hans' side. He jumps between Hans and the kitty boy, blade aimed right at the That's when Hans totally remembers Lakia is a literal sword genius, meaning he can definitely smell the weird vibes coming off the cat. Whiskers is salty and raises a claw, ready to swipe at Sensing a brawl, Hans blinks right into the middle of the death zone. Both freeze instantly to avoid slicing their boss into confetti. Crisis averted, Hans turns to Lakia and tells him to take a chill pill. He explains that the cat guy is dealing with some heavy drama, so he's decided to adopt him. He begs Lakia to be cool, and this pure vibe totally shocks the cat. Lakia glares, asking why a beastman is roaming around human turf. Hans shrugs, claiming that info is classified. Lakia fumes, pointing out that he's the one keeping Hans alive. He grills him for inviting a rondo into his room without thinking. Plus, jumping in front of a blade, reckless much. Hans claims he knew neither would scratch him, so he took the risk. That level of blind trust floors the cat guy again. Lakia is still trashing beast folk when the cat cuts in. He halts the chat to finally drop his name. Hans is stoked to actually get a name out of him. He tells the boys to squash the beef and shake on it. They agree, and boom, Hans has a squad in the Compton Mountains. Hans won't pry into Ace's lore yet. He'll wait for the guy to spill it. No point pressuring someone who just scraped by death, though he worries about their chemistry. Life goes on, but Essa constantly trolls Lakia, like randomly demanding snack service from the night. Lakia hates that the freeloader just naps and munches all day. Yet Hans keeps spoiling him, which drives Lakia absolutely nuts. Soon, Hans announces the Callista Bank is finally a go. Hyped, he reveals that branch number 1 will drop right in the middle of the capital city. Speaking of cash, the kingdom's richest dude isn't a royal. The money king is actually Baronet Dominic Sullivan. Dominic launched the first bank and now totally owns the game. Since then, plenty of big shots tried entering the sector, but flopped hard. Nobody can touch Dominic's financial empire. Meanwhile, Dominic's assistant brings him the latest updates. Puffing a massive cigar, he demands the highlights in order. He hears Duke McCarthy wants a chat about imperial rules. Realizing this is basically a royal order, Dominic agrees. He has to show up. He tells the aide to book the meeting for the afternoon. Then he learns Count Chenevith wants another month to stall on the deal. Dom finally gets the tea on the new bank drop in town. Word on the street is it's run by House Callista, basically a one-branch wonder right now. Hearing it's the Callistas. Dom's totally on zero hype. He pegs them as broke country bumpkins with no clout. Figures they'll crash and burn. So why? Stress. He tells his aide to ghost the new bank, but Loca, Dom snoops for any secret sugar daddies. Meanwhile, that new bank is blowing up big time. Banks are usually Spot is viral, cause their strategy is absolutely lit. Hans's place charges just 1 copper to join. A total steal. Plus, they're handing out loans with 0 collateral attached. Regular banks want a whole gold coin just to say hello. And for loans, they basically want your soul as deposit. That's why normies skip banks, only fancy nobles make the cut. But Callista Bank, they're flipping the whole script. Newbies actually get deets on how to stack their cash. Tellers peep your monthly haul to craft a custom budget. For loans, they just check your income and credit vibe. They aim to dish out. Cash folks can actually pay back without going broke. Even illiterate gramps don't get left in the dust. The crew is super chill, helping everyone with whatever they need. Callista lets broke commoners finally taste that banking life. They really vibe with why folks sign up and what their future hustle looks like. That way, the advice they drop is actually legit. A lady walks in, suspa, gets shook when they actually sign her up. Then something wild goes down post-sign-up. She scores a raffle ticket. Everyone joining in month 1 snags one of these bad boys. She's told to toss the ticket in the magic box. In a month, they'll pick 3 lucky winners. She flips out when she hears about the prize loot. First place bags, 25 gold coins. Major bag alert. Second gets 10 gold coins. Third grabs 5. Sweet deal. The crowd hears this and completely loses their minds. It's a total mob scene to sign up and grab a ticket. Amin and Claude watch. Genie's move. Bro Amin grins. Turns out the raffle hype was totally Claude's bro. He also cooked up the credit score idea with his study squad. Then, boom news hits that they smashed the goal of 100 signups, with 4 hours still on the clock. Claude is absolutely shook by the update. Plus, 30 loan apps just dropped. Amin bets Hans is gonna flip out in the best way possible. He just wishes the boss man could see this magic in person. The local crew in Callista totally crushing it, guards and bankers alike. Amin claims they finally pulled it off, creating a real bank for the people, exactly what Hans preached from day one. News travels fast, finally hitting Hans back home in Callista. He is hyped to hear his boys Almond and Claude are killing it. Over drinks with mom and sis. He spills the tea. They hit the target. Hans is so stoked he plans to hand out fat bonuses to the squad. Regina thinks that is dope, but honestly, she still can't wrap her head around her bro running a bank. Then Hans hits her with, "You want to try running a biz too?" He recalls she actually studied management back in the day, so he asks if she ever thought about putting those skills to work. He promises to back her up, no matter what hustles she picks. Regina just shrugs. Brain is totally empty on ideas. She feels pretty basic next to him, and Callista is kind of boring. That is when Hans drops a wild suggestion. Let's hit the capital. He tells Lakia and the cat girl too. Lakia is floored, but he is oddly down for the road trip. Dude has been Hans's loyal muscle for 3 years straight now, with 2 years left until his name is cleared. Hans is sweating the details, but hopes it won't blow up. He turns to the cat guy, barely getting a word out before, boom, the guy pounces on Hans like a hyper puppy. Lakia snaps, yelling at him to quit the tackling. The boss is fragile. You are gonna break his bones. You idiot. But the catboy just ignores the lecture completely. Zero, chill. Planning this trip, Hans just prays it won't be a total disaster. Departure day hits, and Regina's like, wait, separate rides. Hans sighs, explaining the obvious logic, that he can't leave Asa and Lakia alone. They will kill each other. He promises he will be right on their tail the whole way. It is a month-long trip. Leaving those hotheads alone is suicide. This little drama jogs Regina's memory about how he found these weirdos. How does he keep picking up strays? Like on his trips? Now she is doubting that whole gift from a grandma ring story. Dead silence. Hans has zero comeback for the look she is giving. So he bolts, yell and holler, if you need me. Regina gripes about his secrets, but mom just says, let it go. She tells her daughter the only move right now is to sit tight and wait for him to spill the beans himself. And with that vibe check, the fam rolls out to the capital. 1 month later, at the capital, Asa's hopping like crazy inside. Lakia yells at him to chill since the ride is bumpy. But Asa's total hype mode. Hans gets why Lakia is twitchy. It's all fresh for them, but for Lakia, just bad flashbacks. Asa keeps acting like a total toddler, even popping the door open. Lakia snaps and bonks his head for being such a dummy. They start bickering, and Hans is just praying for peace. Proof he can't leave these two. solo, or they'll definitely burn something down. Soon, they hit the Callista pad and Almond greets. It's basically a city crash pad for visiting nobles. House Callista never had a crib before, so this is huge. Not super fancy, but it'll do the trick for now. Plus, Maline's back from med school to be Owen's doc. Hans looks around, figuring he'll be here a ton, but he's got an escape route planned, just in case. Barry unpacked, and Hans is already baked. Elman shook. Dude, you traveled for a month? He says, to chill. But Hans is like, nope, let them sleep. It's my bank, I gotta check it. Asa sees Lakia going and begs to tag along too. Hans tries to say no, but the kid won't quit. They get there and the place is absolutely packed. Almond says it's 'cause of that promised lottery draw. Third place goes to Ticket 318, and she's literally jumping for joy. The crowd is shocked, the bank isn't actually a scam. Even the security guards are struggling. Handle the mob, they aren't used to this popularity. Allman apologizes, but Hans just wants everyone safe. Honestly though, Hans is totally impressed with the vibe. Didn't think it'd go this smooth, too crowded. So Lakia says let's bounce, and Hans agrees. He saw the action, and he's happy with it. Then Hans gets an idea. Let's go shopping, boys. They hit a store and Asa's like, whoa, cooler than home. Hans tells the guys to grab whatever clothes they want. His treat, a little welcome to the big city gift. Asa spots some sweet fabric and snags it fast. He tells Hans he's obsessed with the crazy patterns. Hans asks, making a dress. Asa's like, no, he wants it just the way it is. Back home, they wrap it. He tries it, on looks fire. Asa's good. So Hans asks Lakia. He's just like, pass. He insists that knights don't do the whole dress-up thing. Since a dress is a no-go, Hans tells him to just upgrade his blade instead. But nope, Lakia is still not vibing with that idea. Hans clocks the weird mood and asks, dude, is something wrong? Lakia says he's chill, but Hans knows the capital stress is totally getting to him. As the squad strolls past a knight commander, their chatter totally grabs his attention. The dude spins around the second he hears that voice. It sounds suspiciously like Laya de Rodriguez, but he can't prove it just yet. Meanwhile, things are getting spicy over at the bank. Regular folks are losing their minds because a noble just walked in. In the back, Manager Patir is dealing with said fancy noble. Turns out, this request is way above his pay grade. The guy skips the small talk and demands to see the big boss immediately. Finally, Mr. Fancy Pants drops his name. He's Duran von Chinovis, the eldest son of the Count. He needs a loan of 7,000 gold, leaving Hans and Potier shook. 7,000 gold is an insane pile of cash. That is like 14 billion in today's money. Potier wonders how Hans handles that. Rewind a few minutes. Hans was barely about to head home when he got the ping about a VIP client. He rushed over, only to hear Duran asking for 7,000 gold. So Hans asks, what do you even need that much for? Duran freezes, but Hans is like, look, I know you're, double quotes, ... noble, but that's a massive bag. I need details before saying yes. That is when it finally clicks for Duran that Callista Bank actually has the funds. Realizing this, Duran decides to spill the tea. He says his fam was once top 10 richest in the empire, mostly because they owned a massive grain supply and Chernik is basically god-tier land, blessed by the earth. Got us so fertile you could accidentally drop seeds and get a huge harvest. They fed the whole empire and stayed rich for ages. Everything was great until the new count took over. Dude's a gambling addict and blew all their cash. Trying to win it back, he started betting the family heirlooms. But things went from bad to nightmare fuel when he put the actual estate up as collateral. Now the debt has snowballed into a whopping 7,000 gold. For that kind of cash, only Sullivan Bank could normally help. But those guys want the land itself as insurance. Since Chernik is their home, losing it isn't an option. Hans does some mental math, figuring Chernik could totally pay off the debt in 2 years with good management. After hearing the whole sob story, Hans actually considers it. Hans tells Duran to chill while he chats with the squad. They dip outside. Inside, Darren knows he is cooked on that loan. Poyer spills the tea to Hans, saying Chernich is by if the fam pledges it. Hans looks lost, so Poya breaks it down for him. Sullivan Bank is going to do whatever to ensure the guys flop on repayment, so he snags the land. That is why the fam is stalling, praying for a win. Everyone in the capital already knows the drama. Still, Poyer thinks a loan with zero backup is nuts. Hans starts frying his brain looking for an exit. He has cash thanks to Lair loot, but can not just blow it all. He ain't trying to toss coins for clout or pity. He digs into past life memories, but it is all super fuzzy. Since Callista is in the sticks, news is rare. But Hans keeps digging, hoping he spots a clue from his old life. Boom! Brain blast hits him hard. Ignoring Poyer, he dashes back to Duran. His cheat code memory says, funding this is actually the big brain move. Hans tells Duran. The bank is in. Both guys are totally shook. Poyer freaks out, but Hans says, "Chup." He kicks Poyer out to finalize the deal solo, even though Poyer thinks it is. Sus. He bails. Duran is just stunned. Did not think he would catch a break after all the hate they got. Vultures have been circling for their land. But now Callista helps. No strings attached. Duran says, thanks, but Hans is like, this ain't charity, bro. He says it is a legit business deal. Duran is like, we got 0 assets. But Hans ain't sweating it. He drops a paper. Just 2 promises. That is it. Boom. Loan approved for the fam. Dominic Sullivan hears this and goes ballistic. Cannot believe an 89-year-old has that kind of cash flow. His info says the Callista zone is broke, so no revenue streams. Yet they still coughed up the dough. He grills his aide on if they missed any deets, but the aide is like, nope, the place is a wasteland with 0 loot or value. Dominic is straight up losing his mind. Totally shook that Callista found 7,000 gold. He tells his aide to stalk the Callista fam hard. Dom's mad his plan to ruin Chernovis is sinking. Turns out, he's the troll behind the Count's betting habit to Hans gets mail already. He barely unpacked. All thanks to his sudden clout from loaning cash to Durant's crew. Turns out, the Callista's got a party invite from Count LV, some dude they don't know. Lakia says duh, Hans is the capital's it boy. Hans's bank was for regular folks, but that 7,000 gold loan got buzz. Now Callista is the main character of every rumor. To stay low-key, Hans lied to the fam. Dad left bank, which funded the biz. But Hans knows he gotta move in silence. Hans asks Leah and Essa if they wanna crash the party, but they both dip. Leah's a given, but Asa skippin' is sus. Asa lives for drama. So this is weird. Asa spills he hates social stuff. He's only wild when chillin' with Hans. He tells Hans he only vibes with him. So Essa stays home. Even Lakia is shook. He's chill. At the bash, nobles are everywhere. Some are wasted, others are talking biz. Then Hans, Regina, and Owen walk in, turn in heads. No intro needed. The crowd clocked him as the Callista squad instantly. Expected a boomer, shocked Hans is a teen. Can't believe he's a boss at his age. Everyone knows the tea, but wonder how a country kid pulled off such a massive flex. Soon, eyes moved to Owen and Regina's fits. Obsessed with how fire and unique the dresses are. The girls whisper, needing the designer One girl beelines straight for Regina. Intros happen, and Regina finally gets a life. Hans admits he only crashed this party for her, trying to get her out there since she's been hiding. In the past life, she carried the fam cause bro is trash. Kept her from making friends or having fun. But Hans is flipping the script. He wants her to slay now. Hans snagged dragon lair dresses, so the girls look total fire. Hans is zoning out when the posh dudes pop up. He jumps, so they quickly say sorry. They're Count Milligan and Viscount. Turns out, they're huge Khan's fan. They dig how he opens accounts for just 1 copper coin. Hans blushes and thanks the fancy dude. They ask about the 7,000 gold loan. He nods but keeps the deets. Hush. Ruxon tries to snoop on cash flow, but Hans swears the bank is solid. So they both whine about biz and how broke everyone is lately. Classic Hans offers a fix by letting know they can grab loans at his bank anytime. Mid-chat mom runs up saying she lost Regina. She's panicking, but Hans says, chill, she's good. Owen left her with kids to chat, but she vanished. She asked the other gals, but nobody's got a clue. Hans tells mom to relax. He'll hunt Regina down. He tells mom to chill. Hans figures Regina's just lost cause, parties ain't her vibe. Hans magic scans the hall. 0 sign of her. He checks outside. Still no Regina sighting. Finally, he scopes out the garden and spots Regina chatting someone up. Hans heads out, but gets close and hears a scream. Casting haste, Hans zooms over to her. He gets there as a dude pulls a sword on her. Hans is shoot. Weapons are banned. Salakia didn't even guard hands. Before he strikes, Hans blinks between Regina gasps seeing her bro pop up. Hans blasts the creep's weapon away. Then things get spicy. A mage pops up. Chance and shields. The shady dude? Hans is stunned. Who the heck is this wizard guy? Seeing he's fighting a mage, goes all out since fam is at risk. Hans ain't quitting. He fires a wind arrow. It smashes the mage's shield, zooming past him and the sword dude. Bam! While hit, the mage is totally shook that it actually got through. Worried about his VIP, the mage yells out, Your Majesty, okay? Then, Regina and Hans realize. Flashback. 30 minutes ago, Regina was just chilling with the squad inside. She's like Callista is wildly different from the city guys. Mid-chat she glances out and spots a gorgeous flower in the yard. Curious about that blum, she ditches the party and heads outside. Her new besties are bummed. They totally forgot to ask about her killer dress. In the garden, Regina eyes the pink bloom. What even is this? She wonders. Suddenly, a voice pops up behind her. Those are lilacs. She jumps, spins around and sees a cute guy talking to her. Dude says he's obsessed with scents. That's why I blurted out. He admits into flowers too. Regina freezes. This guy is way too hot to handle right now. When she finally opens her trap, she's like, IDK flowers, but the smell is awesome. Since it smells so bomb, she's thinking of planting them all over her street back home. Dude's shocked. Nobles usually skip lilacs, cause they're pricey. Then he hypes up her idea even more. Public streets would be cooler than hiding them in private gardens, he says. They don't even realize they're totally on the same wavelength. Realizing they're syncing up, Regina blushes hard. Oops, sorry. Her face is burning up. Why is she so comfy with a stranger? She has no clue. Wait, she never even got his name. She tries to ask, but he starts talking at the exact same time. Maximum awkwardness achieved for these two. Regina finally admits she just wants his name. Before he can reply, he spots a snake slithering right at Regina. Regina sees it and totally freaks out. Dude draws his sword instantly to slice that snake. Enter hands. He thinks the guy's attacking his sister. He teleports right between Regina and the dude, and accidentally squashes the snake flat. So yeah, that's the tea. The guy wasn't hurting her at all. Regina and Hans bow down, begging for mercy. They had no clue he was the emperor, but he's totally chill about it. He gets that it was just a big mix. Turns out, he's Latti's Crow, Carter III, Emperor of Rosenbaum, and only royals can pack weapons at parties. That explains the sword. Plus, his bodyguard. That's Rumbly Ivan, the Imperial Archmage. Dude is packing the realm's sickest mojo, solid level 5 stuff. Guards heard the noise and came sprinting. He wasn't about to get busted or let it blow up. Seeing the EMP flinch, Hans moved fast. Boom! Miragewah, up to fake out the troops. They saw zilch and bolted, totally bamboozled. With the coast clear, Hans fills Crowell in explain. He threw up a shield so the Emperor wouldn't get dragged into more drama. Hans plays it cool, but behind him, his sister is totally losing it. Which makes sense, since she had zero clue her bro could use magic. As if that wasn't wild enough, Ivan suddenly grabs Hayne. The guy is completely shook by the OP magic. Hans just flipped, using a level 6 mirage spell without a single incantation. That's insane. Ivan can't believe his eyes and starts wondering if he's hallucinating. But he knows he's right. Crowell taps Ivan's shoulder to chill him out. Crowell gives props to Hans for the save, and then demands their names. Meanwhile, Ivan is still vibrating with excitement. Hans and Regina finally introduce themselves. And hearing their names, Crowell clicks that these two are the viral topic right now. Hans knows Crowell is basically just a puppet for Townsend and McCarthy. That's why he has no squad and avoids noble crews like the plague. Because of that mess, the guy barely ever steps out in public. Just as you'd guess, Crowell and Ivan say their goodbyes, wishing they could hang and chat way longer next time. Hans is surprised Crowell even showed up to a party with all his issues. Hans spins around to his sister, saying they should head back. But Regina isn't letting this slide. She demands answers, and classic Haynes tries to ghost the topic, but Regina isn't buying it this time. Knowing she won't quit, Hans promises to spill later and pushes them inside. Walking back into the hall, they spot that the whole vibe is totally weird compared to before. Regina runs to her mom, asking why everyone's eyeing them like garbage. Owen says she's confused too, but knows the mood flipped the second some fancy dude walked in. Speaking of that dude, it turns out to be Dominic Sullivan. He barged in trying to turn everyone against the Callistus, claiming they have zero class. Apparently, there's a rule that you gotta greet every single guest in the house when a fam makes their big debut. Dominic roasts them, saying they're mannerless country bumpkins. His words actually sting Hans, but Regina is really feeling the heat. Regina wants to clap back, but Hans holds her back. Hans sees the play and admits it's actually a pretty smart move. For real, there was an ancient rule to greet everyone, but that trend died decades ago, so nobody does it now. Hans knows everyone thinks they're rude and basic right now, and the guy orchestrating it all is obviously Dominic. Dominic is basically a walking etiquette encyclopedia. Plus, he started banking, which gives him leverage over everyone. Everyone knows pretty much all the nobles owe his bank cash. That's why barely anyone dares to go against his word. He knew Dom was salty about the Chinovis drama, but that low blow stunt, totally uncalled for. Hans is shook and drawing a total blank. Making a scene now would just be cringe. He can take the heat, but his fam, no way. Kicking himself for bringing him to this mess. He's raging inside when a voice pops up. It's Darren strutting over, looking super hyped. As soon as the crowd spots him, chatting up Hans, the whole vibe flips. Bro says he's been hunting for him all night. He enters Hans to the squad, leaving him stunned. Suddenly, everyone wants a piece of the action. Those snooty girls run back to Regina, real quick, desperate to chat now, and she just plays along. The guys sneak off to spill the tea in private. Durant's like, my bad, but he had to help out. Turns out, Dominic pulls this shady nonsense all the time. Hans ain't mad. He's stoked. The dude saved his rep. He's shocked Durant has that much sway here. Durant admits his VIP status is mostly riding on his dad's old fame. Pops used to be a legend at these shows before he became a huge gambling addict. Anyway, he thanks Hans, cause without him, they'd be broke. Hans Skit said he didn't save the Shinovas for clout, since he had no clue. Heading home, he replays the whole crazy night, realizing he almost dropped the ball big time. That Emperor bit nearly went south cause of him. Cash and spells aren't enough. He needs intel. At the crib, he spills some secrets to the fam. Admits he's a mage, stronger than the top dog, but he kept a lid on the rest. Not a trust issue, just not strong enough yet. Can't mention the dragon lair or chaos and Hans's mom is seriously not vibing with this news. She knew he was hiding stuff, but no way. Regina's still salty since she saw the whole thing live. Hans tells her to zip it, and she's like, fine. She asks if the squad knows, and he's like, yup. Now she's fuming, cause he told friends before. Little did they know, the duo's outside listening, and Owen then tells Hans that he can keep secrets, but better stay safe, or else. Hans promises his mom he won't make her stress out, and thanks M for having his back. Later, Hans admits he's not here for revenge or power, just to fix this messy world. Hans walks to the barn, plotting his next move. He goes in, shuts the door, and warps to his lair to grind. Asa and Lakia spot him, wondering what the heck he's up to. Lakia chills, knowing Hans ain't ready to spill the tea yet. Asa and Leah start bickering with each other again, while Regina replays the day's drama. She's blushing hard, can't get Crow out of her brain. Meanwhile, Jeepin and Arnold chill at the Info Guild. Jeepin's bored, just messing around with cards. Annabelle yells at him to actually do something, but he's like, boss, people come to US for info. Remember, problem is, their guild's been by nobles cause of some sketchy rumor from way back. Japan thinks it's time to just shut it down and quit. Suddenly, a knock, Jeepon sprints to open it. Hans and Lakia stand there looking like total lost causes. Hans claims he lost a bird. Jeepin asks, the color, blue. Jeepin then guides Leah and Hans inside. Going up, Hans thinks, I just need info now. He didn't care much before, but after the banquet mess, he knows he needs the right intel. His past life memories are super limited to big events only. Besides that, he's totally clueless. That's why he's at this guild. Leah hyped up. Upstairs, they meet the boss lady Annabelle. Hans tries to speak, but she cuts him off. Turns out, she already knows who he is. She spills his whole recent history, leaving him shook. Typical for an info broker, but she has zero clue who Leia is. Then she spots the kitty behind Hans. It's Asa, tagging along in his cat form. Annabelle grabs Asa, petting and cuddling him. Asa tagged along to the Info Guild, swearing he'd stay strictly in fluffy cat mode. But now Annel's rubbing his belly, and he just has to take it or blow his cover. Hans actually has the lowdown on Annel too. She's the boss lady who built this whole guild empire while still super young. Thank goodness she ignored Lakia and Asa, so she's got zero dirt on them. Her crew used to be top tier, like legendary status, until they messed with the wrong stash and got absolutely wrecked for it. The guild was practically toast since the fancy nobles ghosted them, scared stiff of that one guy. That guy is Lord Angus, and he is making sure Annabelle's squad stays totally friendless. Annabelle is shook that Hans actually knows the tea about her and the guild. She admits she might have slept on the guy's skills a little bit. Time to lock in. She ties her hair back and struts to the table to chat. She asks him straight up what kind of intel he is chasing. Hans keeps it real. He knows Ziff about the capital since he is a Callista local. Because of that, Hans is sliding a sweet offer to Annabelle and her crew an exclusive contract. The deal? Hans wants Annabelle to stalk the capital's major nobles and merchants. He also needs the gossip on any drama or trends worth knowing. In exchange, Hans is down to pay cash for every single tip and fully bankroll the operations of Annabelle's Lucen Guild. Annabelle grabs the contract and skims it to make sure it is legit. Since her rep is trash right now, she is kind of forced to say yes. Normally, info guilds wouldn't touch a country bumpkin family at all, but since Lucen is broke, they can't exactly be picky. Annabelle decides to flex a little and show him what she has got. She offers to spill the beans on the Empire's 3 biggest families. Hans is stunned. He only knew to the McCarthys and Townsends. Annabelle nods, saying those 2 are super famous, and basically boss the Emperor around because of it. But surprise, there is a 3rd major player. The Crower family, 400 years old, yet nobody knows their vibe or location. Their boss, Marcus Chevin Crower, has been ghosting everyone for 10 years. Some think he is in his 20s, others say total mystery. The funny part, the other two big clans are desperate to recruit them, but Marquise Chai Crower hit him with Reed and stayed neutral. Even Hans never caught wind of these guys in his past life. Judging by Leia's face, she is just as clueless as he is. Hans figures they stayed hidden by avoiding drama and power trips. Hans is stoked about Hans grabs the intel she offered and pushes her to dig deeper on the Crower family. Then he drops the cash to settle the bill. Info, and the lady lights up like a Christmas tree. She starts screaming about the money and how they can finally buy meat. She is tripping on happiness until Jeep snaps her back to reality, telling her to chill out. As they leave, Leia asks Hans why he is obsessing over the Crowers. Hans says if the big dukes are watching them, he needs to peep it too. Leia gets it, but is Loki stressing about the danger involved? When the trio gets home, Almond greets him looking super anxious. He says a visitor is waiting, and it is someone totally random. Hans walks in and finds the Archmage, Ivan, just chilling there. Suddenly, Hans is sweating buckets, convinced he's totally doomed. He recalls using spoken magic near the Archmage, and dreads being out. That's when Ivan hits him with a request that comes out of nowhere. Ivan literally begs to be Hans's student, leaving his jaw on the floor. It finally clicks that this guy is dead serious about wanting a teacher. Ivan even insists Hans drop the fancy titles and just call him by his first name. Hans is totally shook, arguing that he definitely can't do that. Like, they aren't even close enough to ditch the polite stuff yet. Ivan argues that since he's the student, his master calls the shots. Hans can't process that. Ivan is already playing the pupil card. He panics, reminding Ivan that the dude is way older than him. Plus, Ivan's an Archmage. Hans teaching him makes zero sense. Hans tries to bring up basic manners and social rules. You know, the proper way things are supposed to work. But Ivan claps back, claiming those rules don't apply to magic. He says the magic world cares about skill, not age, rank, or cash. Ivan insists every mage's only dream is reaching the peak. That's exactly why he needs Hans to mentor him. Hans is totally floored by the logic and just stands there stunned. Hans claims he's weak, but Ivan saw that silent sixth circle spell earlier. So Hans straight up lies to his face. He swears it was just basic third circle invisibility magic. Ivan's no dummy. He distinctly heard Hans say mirage back there. Hans doubles down, claiming Ivan's hearing is shot since he can't cast Halavel stuff. Ivan smirks, asking if the Emperor needs a hearing check too. The second the word Emperor drops, things get real. Lakia bolts out, and Hans realizes he forgot to mention meeting the big boss. Ivan looks ticked off that a random guard crashed their chat, but Hans jumps in to defuse the bomb. He explains Lakia isn't just a guard, but his actual bet. It's rude, but Hans begs Ivan to let his friend join the Ivan sighs, realizing he has to play along to get what he wants. After catching up, Lakia is surprisingly chill about the whole mess. Hans expected him to freak out about the accidental Emperor attack. Turns out, Lakia only cares about one thing. He just desperately wants to know how the Emperor is doing. Hans is shook. Yvonne didn't spot Leia. That illusion spell was only 4th circle basic stuff. Since Yvonne is 5th circle tier, Hans figured he'd easily clock the magic glitch on Lakia. But nope, total whiff. Even with Lakia standing right in his face. Deep down, Ivan's just Loki wondering if he's met Lakia somewhere before. Hans lets it slide. First time meeting a mage, so the kid's probably just over. Lakia asks Ivan if he's serious about being Hans's student, and he's like, totally. Lakia jumps in, telling Hans it's actually a solid idea. She points out that helping Ivan is basically doing the Emperor a solid. Lakia swears the big boss will spot Hans's talent, which equals big bucks. Hans immediately realizes that she's just using him to get close to the crown. He sighs and gives in. He tells Ivan he's down to help, but drops a major disclaimer. It's strictly advisory. No cringe master and disciple labels allowed. Plus, Hans begs Ivan not to dox him to the rest of the world. Ivan agrees and asks if there are any other red flags to avoid. Hans then tells him to quit with the fancy honor. Ivan has no choice but to vibe with the terms. Meanwhile, Hans is sweating about hiding his identity, since Ivan is also a cracked mage. But Hans starts seeing why Lakia told him to take the deal. It's a killer networking opportunity. Ivan is about to bounce when he runs into Regina. She says hi, and Ivan suddenly realizes he forgot the Emperor's package. He pulls out a royal letter, leaving the siblings totally shook. He came to deliver that, but got sidetracked by his side quest. Regina panics and asks her bro if he should send his stuff first. But Hans shuts that down, reminding Regina that the Emperor wrote that specifically for her eyes only. He tells her to read it and handle the reply herself like a big girl. Regina grabs the note and flees to her room to devour it. Back at the castle, Ivan updates the boss on his new tutor, Hans. Only after yapping did he remember to hand over Regina's reply. The Emperor recalls how Ivan insisted on playing mailman instead of sending a servant, he realizes Ivan played him just to get FaceTime with Han Sneaky. Anyway, in the details of the letter, the impy explained he had to bail fast last time, which is why he ghosted without a proper goodbye. The ruler admits he crashed the banquet just to check out the Callista family hype for himself. He was curious, what kind of weirdo opens a bank for Nor? He admits he was so fixated on Hans, he almost missed the cool sister. The guy confesses he actually loved the little chat he managed to have with Regina that night. So, he basically asks to be besties and swap stories via mail. Regina was totally blushing when she read that part. She had to beg Ivan for a sec to write a proper reply. Ivan told her to chill since he was busy chatting up Hans. Anyway, in her note, she apologizes for her brother going aggro on him. She also admits she kinda liked their moment together too. She tells him she's down to share her feelings if that's what he wants. The Emperor is absolutely floored when he reads her response. Regina's cool with it, since she assumes he'll marry some foreign princess anyway. While the EMP is fine being a puppet, but he definitely wouldn't hesitate to slide into Regina's instantly. The two started passing notes, and Hans caught on quick. Hans ain't exactly a romance guru, but even he could tell those two were vibing hard. He's debating if he should let the ship sail or sink it. He searches his brain archive to check the Emperor's deal, but finds zero useful info. He just recalls the dude got hitched to a random princess picked by the two bossy clans running the show. Hans decides to chill, not ruin the vibe, and lets them do their thing. Suddenly, Callista Bank is the hottest spot in town. Regular folks were obsessed, signing up like it was free pizza. Next thing you know, the whole city's signed up. Claude tells Hans they're absolutely crushing it, and suggests killing the promo next month cause they're set. Stat-wise, they're basically rivaling Sullivan's Bank now. Folks are actually traveling from other towns just to sign up after hearing the insane hype about Callista. Hans is shook that people outside the city want in too. Hans wants to expand, but Claude's like, hold up, that's tough. Claude says sorry for snapping, but Hans is like, nah, spill it. Claude explains their client base is mostly broke folks, so, tons of people, but the cash pile is actually tiny. He says right now, money coming in barely matches money going out. Claude thinks expanding now would just wreck their savings. Hans just smirks at Claude's little panic. Claude asks, what's funny? And Hans tells him, he's impressed Claude actually gets the struggle they're in. Hans says, it's finally time to launch that crazy biz idea he pitched. Claude's jaw drops, and he tries to tell Hans that plan is barely even a sketch yet. He says they ditched it, cause it had major glitches but Hans is like, chill, bro, I've got a hack to fix the bugs. Soon after, Callista Bank drops the new check system. At Huffman Trading, this dude hands a client a slip instead of 30 gold coins. The merchant stares at the paper like, what? The trader says, it's a check. Callista Bank's new toy. He swears if he hits up the bank and shows them the note, they'll hand over his 30 gold. The merchant thinks the paper is worthless, but the trader says he literally deposited 30 gold coins beforehand. Since lugging cash is a drag, he put it in the bank for the dude to grab. The merchant gives the paper the side eye and insists on cold hard cash. The trader says, sorry man, I'm cashless now. The merchant is sketchy about it, so the trader drags him to the bank to grab the cash. The teller takes forever, verifying the check is legit. The dude gets his 30 gold and is completely floored. Everyone knows gold coins are super heavy and honestly, waste space. Big trading corps stress out over moving that much cash. To keep the loot safe, they pay mercenaries insane amounts for protection. Even then, convoys get jumped and the money gets swiped all the time. But with a check, you can carry a fortune with zero stress. That was Claude's brainwave. Hence, the check was born. He knew this hack would go viral across the kingdom fast. Later, Sullivan hears Huffman Trading switch to Callista Bank. Sullivan is livid. He's the one who made Huffman a top 10 company in the first place. His assistant notes that people are flocking to Callista to cash out their checks. The guy also spills that some clients stay to do other business too. Soon, even the skeptical nobles started using Callista. Sullivan can't believe a peasant bank is blowing up over a piece of paper. He grabs one of the checks to inspect, sees a serial number, signature, and amount. Sullivan thinks it's nothing special. He notices it's made of fiber and silk, so it won't get soggy or rip. He figures his bank can totally copy that. Sullivan tells his aide they need to start printing their own checks. Doesn't care if it's a copycat job, just get it done. He bets merchants will run back since they know his bank. Easy peasy. The assistant is shocked and hints, that's kinda shady. That just triggers Sullivan. He yells that he invented banking here. Writing numbers on paper isn't rocket science. The aide doesn't want the smoke, so he promises to handle it ASAP. Sullivan also bets Callista Bank is about to open new spots soon. Sully told his sidekick to sneak a mole right into the fresh meat crew. He wants all the tea, and his pal says, consider it done. Dude is freaking out over the stress of being boss. Seems he's totally obsessed with this Bowen guy. Meanwhile, Anna drops the homework Hans asked for. Hans instantly spots one name. He's like, spill everything on this dude? Anna is shook. Realized Hans is just built different. He skimmed hundreds of pages of noble intel in seconds. Even sorted the whole pile. By rank she can't believe he is only 8. She says Bowen has a weird hobby. Buying girl clothes. But get this, he doesn't do it to be a player or he just likes the fits. Dude actually travels the empire just to shop, so his closet is absolutely stacked. Now, then she drops that he's been trying to launch a salon for 3 years, but Sullivan's bank keeps denying his loan requests for the shop. Hans is confused. Why keep shutting him down? Anna says salon work is too basic for a noble. Hans buzzes Pierre and hands over the Bowen file. He says, where to file it. Blowing Anna's mind again. She sees it going straight to the invest now pile. Hans finally realized something about being fancy. Just like regular folks get stuck by their social tag, nobles are trapped in their own box. Later, he asks Amund how the turf is. All good. Amund says Hans's ideas brought in tons of new people. Plus, the harvest this year is totally popping off. Hans is stoked and figures he can chill about the land. Pretty soon, Sullivan started issuing checks. Folks flocked to them since they knew that bank way before Callista showed up. Some people hated trekking to the capital just to hit Callista's main office for cash. Poyer tells Doman their numbers tanked thanks to Sullivan. Shockingly, Hans tells the guy to chill. It's normal for successful biz to have copycats. He isn't worried, says they already snagged the customers they wanted. Plus, their checks use special tech that nobody else has. Turns out, Bowen also rolled up to the bank to chat with Hans. He burst in with a bouquet, making a total scene for Hans. Hans froze, totally shook by the guy's look. Thought Bowen was a creep at first, but nah, dude just really digs dresses. Chill vibes. Bowen admitted he was totally floored. When that bank paperwork finally dropped, feared it was a scam, an investment, he only expected a loan. Hans swears it's not some sketchy scam. He tells Bowen, you run the shop, you keep the cash, no debt. The bank just wants a slice of the profit pie though. Dude just straight up bursts into tears. Thanks Hans, admitting folks usually treat him like a total creeper. Even the salon crew called him enough. Bowen didn't think Hans would buy it. Then he spots Poyer watering the vase. He's like, yo, stop, those are totally fake. Bowen admits he hates real flowers, 'cause they die. So he paid a pro to keep these fresh forever. Hans is shook. Those pretty blooms are 100% artificial. He admits they're way cooler than the trashy fake plants he's seen before. Then Bowen drops the bomb. Making them costs big bucks. He says 1 flower burns, 2 silver coins. Yikes. Potier hears that and whispers, Bus, maybe rethink this. Dude obviously has zero clue about money. Poyer figures nobody's gonna drop 2 silvers on a flower that isn't bling. But Hans shuts him down. He knows the future. Hans knows later on, fancy fake flowers will be the huge trend for noble ladies. They'll rock 'em as corsages for hats, bling, or on a dress or two. Even with the price, demand went crazy, making flowers cooler than gems. Actually, it was the thing that wrecked Callista's bank account in the past life. Hans knows it's years away, but the payoff will be huge. So Hans tells Bowen, I'm totally investing. Later, Hans gives the fakes to his sis, and she's blown away. The smell is so legit, she can't believe they're plastic. Asa, on the other hand, whines to Lakia that he's bored, 'cause Hans is swamped. Hans is so busy he barely grabs food with the squad. Boom, a huge magic wave from the shed smacks them. Asa's like, that magic vibe leaks out every single night. They decide to snoop. Hans walks out and busts, them waiting for him. Asa grills him on his nightly shed habits. He knows Hans is hiding stuff. Leia asks if his secret project is sketchy, but Hans gets all awkward about it. Leia peeps the mood and chills. Hans isn't ready to spill. But Asa, he ain't letting it slide. He reminds Hans, you said no secrets. Bruh, Hans knows it's gonna get messy. So he folds. He claims he was just gonna call him over. He brings him inside to see a giant gold magic circle. Says he's been grinding on it whenever, and it's finally done. Hans figures he should have put up a better shield to stop leaks. Leia and Asa are totally floored by the insane energy pulsing from the circle. They're dying to know what it is. So Hans drops the bomb. Warp gate. Leia calls Cap that's 7th circle magic. Basically impossible. Even back in the golden age, barely anyone could pull that off. Now Lakia is seriously wondering who this guy actually is. So Hans spills the beans. He's the heir to the gold dragon. That info just fries their brains even more. He knew they were suspicious, but they stayed quiet, 'cause he saved their skins. He could keep playing pretend, but honestly, he figures they deserve the truth after trusting him with their lives. But the whole time travel part, yeah, that stays zipped. It finally clicks for Leah why he had to be so secretive. Plus, he's gonna be warping home a lot now. Hard to hide that. He'd hate for them to panic every time he vanishes into thin air. Hop in, Hans grins. We're all taking a ride. Boom, they poof into Callista Castle. Lakia and Asa are shook. First time using 7th circle spells. A bit glitchy on the aiming. Lakia notices they're in that off-limits storage room. She realizes that Hans had this whole setup planned from day one. Hans admits he was stressing about ditching his turf for so long. Lakia asks, so it's a direct link? Just here, to the shed? Yup, Hans nods. Fixed coordinates only, no free roaming. He's just hyped to be back on his own turf after months. He strolls to the window, and his jaw hits the floor. He bolts outside. The whole place is basically an ocean. William the butler spots him, and nearly faints. You're in the capital. Forget me, Hans yells. Look at this mess. He demands an update, and William sighs. We're underwater, sir. Rained for a week straight, then the river rage quit this morning. The staff has been scrambling to get folks out of the low zones. Clueless about the portal, William thinks they drove back. He asks if Hans is okay, but the guy is already zoned out. Hans remembers. Yeah, rainy season hits hard every year, but a total flood, that's never happened before. He's racking his brain because he definitely would remember a disaster this big from his past life. William adds, the Western Plains are getting absolutely wrecked. It clicks. There's a reason House Callisto was always broke, despite their land. It's simply because the East was just rocky crags, West was total swamp goo. Basically, a zombie zone where nothing survived. So Hans went full tryhard on fixing the dirt, grinding XP to level up the turf for 3 years. He dug canals and mixed sand so plants didn't die. Boom! Suddenly, the harvest was actually cracked. Word got out, and peeps started flooding in fast. His butler was like, yo, we are crushing it. The food supply was absolutely Hans thought the place was on autopilot, but coming back was a total reality check for him. The river yeeted itself all over his fancy land. Luckily, it hit the farms, not the cribs. Hans checked if peeps dipped. They bailed early. Knights are still sweeping for stragglers though. Then Hans goes full emo. It is all on me. Said the swamp was meant to sponge up the rain, but they filled them in during the upgrade. Asa is confused, like, bro, nature did this. Leah agreed. It has been 3 years. Dude, Hans wasn't buying their hype though. Thought his future site cheat codes worked. He expected a dub by patching the bugs. But now, he feels he totally scuffed it. Wondering if his hacks just broke the game. Hans was zoning out hard until Leah screeched at him to snap out of it. You are the boss, fix it. Don't pout, she yelled. Her shaking him finally rebooted his brain. He asked the butler what the staff was doing. They were hauling loot up from the basement. Hans was like, nah, scrap that plan. Everyone help save the villagers right now. He told Leah to go help the squad with relief. Hans admits she is right. Save the town first. News came in, 0 deaths, everyone is leaving. Clear the riverside too, the ground is moosh. Suddenly, a knight rushed over with some major bad news. Apparently, the bridge downstream is toast. They bolted over and saw it snapped in half. Hans panicked. 20 houses were stuck there. He asked for deets, and if anyone was trapped, the knight was like, it is hard to say, ... cause it was already wrecked when we saw it. Boom, random lady spotted across the bridge. She's screaming about some sick dude nearby. Begs Hans for help, cause the river is blocked. Hans asks the knights, yo, any other way around this water up there? Knight says, yeah, but it's totally underwater. Way more sketchy. Hans hops off, grabs a rock, and yeets it with magic to check vibes. Rock zooms away, and Hans realizes, ... FLOATY, spells get messed up by the wind. Bummer. So, simple tricks won't fool the crowd watching him. He tells Leia, make sure your boys stay quiet about this flex. Leia's confused but goes scotch you. Hans struts to the busted bridge. People scream, careful, dude. But Hans isn't backing down now. He's got that golden dragon, Safried energy. Boom. Kinesa spell. Everyone gasps. Rocks move. But wait, there's more. He starts spamming spells. Crowd is totally lost. Glowing like gold, Hans just ... stacks magic and seals it with a level 6 hardener. Done bridge, fixed. Lakia's eyes nearly pop out. Hans tells the squad, bridge is safe. Go, save the peeps. Leah nods, but Hans knows the witnesses are going to be asking questions. Hans thinks his move was kinda wild, but Leah steps up and yells at the knights. Forget the magic show. Focus on saving lives. Meet me later. I got news, he adds. With the bridge back, saving folks was a breeze. Locals thank Hans. He's shocked at how many are hurt, though glad they were fast, or it would have been a total disaster. Servant asks, how'd you get here if the bridge was broken? He's shook. He can't lie to save his life. Luckily, a rescued lady saves him. She lies, bridge was fine, just some trash on it. Another guy backs her up to sell it. Servant insists it broke, but everyone gaslights him. You're seeing things. Bro, look at it. An old granny walks up to thank Hayne. Being outsiders, they thought they were goners, but Hans came through. Hans feels pretty awesome hearing that. After the flood cleanup, Lakia grabs the knights who saw the magic. The witness lady joins the squad too. Leah says, listen up before we bounce. They already know the boss is amazing. Leah knows they're probably freaking out with questions. So he asks, if you were top-tier nobles, what would you do? Lakia spills the tea. Hans snagged that count title at just 50. Plus, his magic stats, off the charts. Totally, strong as on the continent. But here's the gag without mana. The kid has 0 physical defense. Lakia spells it out. If the other noble vultures catch wind of this, they'd swoop in and snatch Hans's power before you could blink. The knights finally get a clue. That reality check hits them hard. Lakia makes them realize why keeping the boss's skills secret is survival 1. The squad roars in agreement, shaking the walls. Message received. Then Lakia turns to the lady, apologizing for dragging her into this mess. But she's totally chill about it. No drama here. She admits she's a magic noob, but even she knows Hans is built different. He risked it all to save him. Keeping her mouth shut is the least she can do. Lakia lets out a massive breath, relieved the whole crew is actually on the same page. For once, he heads to the boss's office, and surprise, Hans is grinding away again. The kid's buried in data from that Western reclamation project. Lakia can't believe Hans is still tripping over the flood being his fault. Hans points at the map. The west is basically in a hole compared to the east. That's the main culprit, right there. Rain from the Compton Peaks rushes down and turns the plains into a swamp. Hans beats himself up, calling the whole project a total rookie mistake. He thinks he was flying blind, pushing for that land grab. Now he's brainstorming a dam upstream to stop a sequel disaster. He's gonna ring up the engineering nerds as soon as the sun's up. Lakia sees the kid spiraling and says, caring is cool, but don't solo this burden. He leans in, telling Hans, bro, use your team. That's what we're here for. Hans thanks him but keeps it real. You're bouncing in 2 years, right? That hits hard. Hans promised Lakia's name would be cleared in 5 years total. That's literally the only reason Lakia is crashing in Callista right now. Hans admits he's been feeling pretty guilty about the arrangement. He hates dumping all this work on a guy who's technically just hiding out, making a fugitive the Knight Commander, probably asking a lot. So, Eselo my bad gift, Hans has a surprise. He whips out this gorgeous sword and hands it over like it's nothing. Turns out, seeing Lakia lug around that rusty old junk was bugging him. Was saving it for later, but hey, chaos happened, so why wait? Lakia thinks it's sweet and all, but reminds him, guards usually stick to basic gear so we don't stand out. Then Hans drops the mic. It's made of dragon bone. Lakia's jaw practically hits the floor. No way. Hans says it's Oliphant alloy, a dragon bone and mithril mashup. Top tier loot, basically the only metal that won't melt under a swordmaster's aura. And get this, only dragons can actually craft the stuff. Hans snagged it from a lair and decided only Lakia was cool enough to wield it. Lakia grabs Hans, bro, are you actually He explains some gifts are cool, but this, total cringe. Leah screams that dragon gear costs a fortune, but Hans is all, yeah. Then Lakia asks if trusting Asa is really the move. Hans reminds him, catfolks don't vibe with human rules anyway. He figures Asa is just crashing here till he bounces back home. Hearing that spill, Lakia finally gets what kind of weirdo Haynes is. He sees Hans thinks everyone's gonna ghost him eventually, yet he's still leaking his biggest secrets like it's nothing. Plus, he's just tossing rare loot at him for free. Maid bursts in. Yo, some Rondo is here, beefing with Essa. Hans and Lakia sprint the drama and find Essa facing off against a weird guy. Essa knows the Dudragi. He yells, back off, guys. Then Ryuji drops to his knees, treating Asa like royalty. Hans and Lakia are completely shook. Inside, Hans apologizes. Ryuji for his squad acting rude to Asa's guest. Turns out, Ryuji's a cat warrior. He thanks Hans for housing Asa, but he's like, Asa can't live with humans, bruh. So he's planning to drag Asa back to their turf. Hans keeps a poker face, totally cause he figured this drama would drop eventually. But Asa snaps, telling Ryuji, no way, I'm going back. Ryuji tries to remind him, humans are trash news. Asa stands firm, scared his stalker is still back home. Hans gets it, but he tells the guy, Asa's, my bestie, back off. He tells Ryuji that Asa can chill here forever if he wants. Asa dives behind Hans. Like, see, I ain't leaving. He tells Ryuji. Hans is cool. Stop tripping. Ryuji's all. But everyone back home is worried sick. ASA ain't buying it since nobody cared before. Leia starts wondering if ASA is actually VIP status. Ryuji sees Asa isn't changing his mind, so he decides, fine, I'm staying too. Hans is shocked, but gotta accept Asa's. Just like that, Ryuji joins the circus. Flood's gone by noon, but Hans is still stressing the explanation. He's meant to be in the capital, not magic fixing bridges here. He's freaking out about this. When Leia asks, you heading back to the city? Hans nods but panics because he hasn't explained Zip, made dips, and Hans realizes Lakea already fixed his mess. So, Hans and the squad warped back to the capital in Ryuji totally flipped out, first warp ever, but Hans wasn't safe yet. Sis was on the warpath. She'd practically called the cops on him already. He only meant to test the gate and bounce back. But seeing the mess back home, couldn't hide that. Had to spill the beans. Yeah, flooded our place. Told him he checked it out. What? Everyone's alive. Once the story was out, Regina grilled him. How'd you travel so fast? Mom played MVP again though. Telling Sis to chill. He'll share when he's ready. Regina rolled her eyes with a snarky parting shot, telling him to say hi to the help next time. Meanwhile, Asa was stressing over asked if he's good. Ryuji's like, bro, I'm fine, right? Then, Leia pops up. Hey, Asa, can we chat? Asa's like, shoo, but Leia wanted a private Ryuji took the hint and yeeted himself out the window. Classic cat. Leia stared at the window, totally shook, until Asa snapped him back. So, what's the deal? Leia admitted he's been trying to mind his own business, but he had to ask, are you a wanted criminal? If Asa's hot property, that puts Hans at risk. He needed to know if hanging out was dangerous. Asa shot back that he isn't a crook, just dealing with serious drama. Leia stayed quiet, hoping for more deets. He recalled Hans mentioning Asa might go home. When he realized Asa wasn't gonna spill, Leia promised to back off. Leia turned to go, but Asa eyed his new blade. Hans gave it to me, Leia said, but I'm returning it. The second he said that Asa locked onto that weapon. I'll take it if you don't want it, Asa offered. Leia argued, no way. Asa looked confused. It's secret dragon gear, Leia whispered. Top tier. Asa pointed out that since Leia given it back anyway, it was fair game. Besides, Asa smirked. It's up to Haynes, right? Leia realized he had a point. Knowing Hans, gotta toss that sword back to Asa stat. But Leia tells Asa, nope, keeping the blade for myself. Cue a massive shouting match. Everyone can hear. Later, Regina and Hans zip off to the castle, cause Emperor Carter DM'd an invite. Post-flood, Leia said he's grinding XP solo with the new sword. Asa is also tied up with Ryuji. Since he's got tons of tea to spill, Hans thinks it's prime time to hit the dragon's lair to level up. He was plotting when Regina burst in with fan mail from the Emperor. Gasping from hype, she says, Carter wants a dinner date tomorrow. So they drip out in fancy gear and hit the palace. Carter's super chill, says their last meet was too short. They sit, and Carter admits he's been dying to hang out. Hans is shook seeing that the guest list is just him and his sis. Plus, Ivan Carter's BFF is crashing too. Hans is stunned. In his past life, this emperor was totally antisocial. Hans also spots Carter glowing up since last time. Suddenly, fancy grub gets served. By the chef, Regina's floored. Carter asks if the food is weird. Regina's like, nah, it's all good. Hans slurps the soup. It's actually fire. Salty, but tasty. Carter says it's got clams and shrimp. Turns out Carter stands this dish and is stoked. They dig it too. Ivan spills that this meal isn't served often, meaning Carter thinks Hans is a total VIP. Carter asks if they're into seafood usually. Regina says, nope, rarely get it. Hans agrees. Callista's landlocked, so fish is super rare for Carter says the capital is in the same boat. Seafood rots fast during shipping, so it costs big bucks. Even then, sometimes you just can't get any. Carter says it's no baloney grub, but he wishes regular folks could snack on it too. Hearing that, Hans knows Carter isn't basic like other nobles. As they vibe, even more food shows up. They thank Carter for the crazy, exotic feast. Hans realizes the hangout is wrapping up, but wonders if they're really friends. Then Carter turns to Hans and asks if he wants to keep chatting. Hans is all, yeah, but Carter's like, not you, bro. Turns out the big boss was actually chatting up Regina. Ivan immediately clocks what the Emperor is plotting, so he grabs Hans and eats him out, saying they need to talk ASAP. Ivan drags him straight to the Magic Nerd headquarters. Hans is shook. Magic's dead, but these wizards are still via. They just practice spells and vibe all day, totally free. Ivan tells him to come check out his lab. Hans is surprised. The guy has his own private Ivan flexes that he's not the only one with a setup. Apparently, all the court wizards get their own cribs. They're chatting when some four-eyed dude crashes into him. Hans chills, but Glasses dude just roasts him for standing there. Hans is salty. but Ivan says, let it slide. These nerds think research is life. Ivan explained. Then he asks Hans if he vibes with the institute. No ranks, no cash, no power trips here. Ivan says there's no annoying noble beef or politics either. He keeps hyping up the spot, telling Hans it's full of magic geeks, grinding 24/7. Basically, Ivan claims it's wizard paradise. Hans finally gets the hint. You want me to join? Ivan nods. Yep. He swears Hans can stay totally incognito. So this whole tour was just a recruitment prank. But Hans hits him with a hard pass. He admits meeting other wizards sounds lit. Sure, but there's a massive catch attached. Their magic sources are totally different. Dragon magic ain't nothing like human spells. Dragon style is instant heart power, no cringe chanting needed. Hans knows zip about human casting since he started with dragon tech. So, he'd basically be total trash at this school. Then Hans spots a magic circle on the board. Ivan's like, that's my new Fireburst project. It buffs a level 1 fireball into a level 5 nuke. It's buggy though, not finished. Ivan reminds him he's a defense mate, thanks to the Emperor, so his attack stats are weak. Hans stares and asks, can I try fixing that? Usually, making spells is a huge flex for mages. It's like a legendary achievement. Proof that you're the goat of wizardry. So they usually gatekeep their work super hard. Hans couldn't believe Ivan let him mod his magic circle. Super rare! After staring at the math for a sec, Hans spotted the glitch. Told Ivan, and boom. Ivan lost it. He grabbed Hans, hugging him and screaming, genius. Said he'd been stuck for months, yet Hans crushed it in minutes. Hans tried to play it cool, claiming he just tweaked what was there. No biggie, Ivan insisted. Bro, you mastered ancient runes. That's genius level. Hans blinked. Wait, runic language? Seriously. Ivan explained the magic design is literally just ancient runes. So, getting it instantly makes Hans a total rune prodigy. It clicked. That's why he got the human magic math on his first try. The T is simple. Ancient runes are just dragon magic turned into words. Human magic just copy-pastes that code. So basically, dragon magic is the OG source code. Hans realized he could study both, since it's the same system. Mind totally blown. Snapping back to reality, he apologized for messing with Ivan's work. Ivan wasn't salty. He already saw Hans as his master. Rejection or not, he told Hans to chill out. On the polite stuff, learning from him was a huge flex. Hans dug that Ivan had zero ego compared to other mages. Dude just wants to nerd out on magic. That's it. Ivan's students walked in and gasped the magic circle was done. Ivan felt weird since he wasn't the one who actually solved it. Still, he introduced the squad to Hans. Told them Hans was the Emperor's guest, just getting a quick tour. Turns out, the guy from earlier was a student there. He hated a nobody being in the lab. Another student tried to hush him, saying they should just hype the completed spell. That just triggered him. He demanded they kick the outsider out. He was furious that a normie was looking at their secret sauce. He was annoying Ivan, but Ivan stayed quiet to protect Hans's cover. Ivan reminded the crew that he invited Hans, so they better show some respect. Added that he's the Emperor's guest, so cut the attitude. Ivan obviously can't just blurt out that this random guy is actually a total wizard legend. One salty kid claps back that Ivan said to ignore rank. Hans drags Ivan out before the drama explodes. Outside, Ivan feels super guilty about the mess. Admits he spoiled them, so they act like brats. Hans is totally chill about it though. He gets that Ivan has to keep his cover, low-key. Plus, he thinks it's cool how close they are. Ivan admits they got skills, but zero manners. Bets they'd pass out cold if they saw Hans fight. Hans already peeped their crazy potential back there. Since Ivan is basically a celebrity mage, he only picks the absolute best students. Hans knows those three will be future bosses. Kinda wishes he could recruit them for his scheme. They head back to the waiting spot and catch Carter and Regina cozying up, just chatting and grinning like total Hans is shook. When did they become a thing? Knew about the letters, but not this whole vibe. Ivan just cracks up, watching Hans's face. Didn't realize Hans was so clueless about love. After hanging out, the duo hops in the ride home. Out of nowhere, Regina asks what guys usually like. Hans instantly freezes. Knowing where this is, going he's trapped, giving relationship tips. Being a rookie, he stutters but asks if she's worried. Regina gets all shy answering, which makes it obvious she's totally crushing on the Emperor. She admits the feels, but doesn't want the crown. She just digs talking to Carter and hanging out. Hans sees the vibe and promises Regina that he's got her back, whatever she decides to do. Says to ignore the haters and just do her thing. Ivan warned him. Control her. And she totally Not long after that, fake checks start popping up at Sullivan Bank. A big CEO tries to cash out but gets rejected cold. At first, he thought it was a prank since it was worth 50 gold coins. turns into a huge shouting match. Everyone watches. Turns out, this guy was the first one. Swap banks. When he heard about the new check system, Dominic hears about the scams and starts freaking out. His sidekick drops the bomb. It's a total mess at every single spot. The fakes are so good, they're basically clones. It's savage. Even the staff are totally clueless on which is which. So, nobody knows how much fake cash is floating around. Sully panics and orders a full check recall in 2 weeks. He demands that only the creator can cash out at their specific branch. After 2 weeks, bam, no more withdrawals. The aide is shook, arguing that 2 weeks is way too short and folks will definitely miss the deadline. He reckons it needs months. But, Sully says, focus on the VI. Screw the regular plebs. Suddenly, another lackey bursts in, shouting that the main lobby is swarming with angry people. Trust is dead, and everyone wants their cash. Like right now? At first, Sully thinks this is chill since he wanted a recall anyway. Then a nit hits him. They think his bank is trash. Now, big shots are pulling massive funds. It's gonna be a total bank run soon. A bank run is, basically, when everyone yanks their money at once. Sully is totally wrecked. And asks how the rival Callista crew is dealing with the fakes. The aide says, Callista is actually crushing it by spotting the dupes the second they walk in the door. Turns out, they got some fancy gadget to verify everything. Hans shows Annabelle the gizmo and says they installed them everywhere on day 1. Staff won't pay a dime unless the machine gives the green light. Because of this toy, they can bust any fake, no matter how epic the forgery is. Annabelle realizes Hans totally saw this coming. Hans nods. Scammers are gonna scam, no matter how fancy the paper. That's why he prepped a fix just to be safe. Annabelle says, info on that detector is selling for big bucks. Legend guilds and shady brokers are all dying to get the specs. And Sullivan's crew is the thirstiest of all. They'll pay anything for just a crumb of info on the device, but nobody knows squat. Hans gets it. The thing just looks like a boring lamp. But actually, it's magic tech stuffed with mana stones. Hans coded magic into the paper that glows on specific vibes, then built the detector so even normies can use it. Back when he first set this up, he felt kinda paranoid. But looking back, total big brain move. Hans tells Annabelle the gadget rocks bang tech so, even if she spilled the tea, nobody could copy it. Annabelle gets a bit salty. Even if he's joking, she swears she'd never sell out his secrets. Or his crew, not even for billions of dollars. He's her hero, basically. Dude saved her guild from going bust. Thanks to that, they're swimming in requests now. Hans is totally vibing with the guild. Back when he tried to branch out, Annabelle's crew saved him from hiring literal spies. He just can't wrap his head around Sullivan being such a toxic troll who'd wreck anyone just for kicks. Annabelle spills the tea. Sullivan gets away with it, cause House McCarthy backs him. House McCarthy is basically one of the 2 big bosses running the empire, right next to House Townsend. Hans asks if she has dirt on Marquise Crower, but Annabelle's got zilch. She says that info is practically invisible, so she can't grab it. Hans knows McCarthy will eventually catch on to glow up and definitely try to mess with his business. To prep, Hans wants to team up with Marcus House. But for now, he decides to ignore the drama he can't control. Then he asks Annabelle if she knows any traders in Somerville. She's like, duh, because that's Geoprian's hometown. Hans asks if any companies there specialize in seafood distribution. Annabelle is clueless on that one, saying she'd have to check. Still, she bets there's a few out there. Somerville is the empire's biggest coast and totally famous for seafood. Hans gets hyped and tells Annabelle about his master plan to run a seafood joint straight from the capital. She freaks out a bit, warning him that seafood is super pricey. She tries to bring up the crazy transport issues, but Hans promises he'll figure it out. He gives her guild the missions: secure safe food delivery and find recipes the city folks will vibe with. She's shook but flattered, cracking a smile at the honor. Hans is surprised she's down to start without even knowing the deets. Annabelle tells him she's learned one major thing: working with him. Doubting him is pointless, cause he crushes whatever he focuses on. Hans takes the ego boost and smiles, telling her he'll be waiting for the contract. Thanks to Sullivan Bank's drama, Callista Bank is stealing all their customers. When Hans pitched the seafood restaurant idea, his squad loved it. Lakia even offered to go study recipes in Somerville. Hans is stoked that everything is smooth, so he thinks it's time to head back to his turf. He tells his mom and sis he's bouncing back to their territory soon. Regina is shocked, but Hans explains business is chill now. Plus, he thinks ditching the territory for too long is a bad look. His mom agrees and says she'll have to say bye to her new friends. Regina just wants to go shopping before they leave the city. Then Hans drops the bomb. He's leaving them there. Mom is stunned. Hans spills that Mom has been ghosting the social scene cause she's been sick for a couple of years. She recently just popped up in the capital and is making bet. Mom totally agrees, blushing like crazy. Regina chimes in that Mom's inbox is exploding with party invites. Everyone is dying to see her at their shindigs these days. Hans pivots to Regina, telling her to just crash in the capital since she needs to hit the books anyway. Plus, texting that secret pen pal of hers will be way easier. Mom's radar goes off instantly, sensing something is up, and she grills Regina if this pen pal is a boy. Owen hypes Regina up, saying she's at the age to snag a hubby. Hans obviously can't drop the bomb that the guy is literally the emperor. Regina asks if Hans won't go nuts living solo back on their turf. Hans tells Regina to chill, saying he's good cause he'll be home. Owen, though, isn't stressing cause she knows Hans has his squad, Lakia and Asa, with him. Soon Hans and the crew gear up to bounce back to Callista. Asa is stoked to leave. He hates the city vibes compared to Callista. Hans knows Lakia is low-key relieved too cause he was trapped inside, scared someone might spot him in the big city. Weirdly, Ruji catches a ride up front with the driver. He hates being squished, so he picked the fresh air outside. Inside the ride, Asa and Lakia are already pranking each other. Asa gripes about the carriage, begging to just use the warp gate. Hans says, deal with it. No fast travel on official business trips. Before long, they pull up to Callista, and Lakia shakes Hans awake. He says something's off. Hans peeks out and sees a massive mob. William pops up, saying he came to roll out the red carpet personally. William tells Hans to hop off the carriage kazoofing, it would actually be faster. Hans asks William why the entrance is absolutely packed with people. William explains they're all newbies moving in. The ID line is insane. Hans is shook hearing this since he figured the flood drama would scare folks away from town. William's like, nah, dude, it's the total opposite. After the flood, word got out that Hans paid the victims big time. Now Callista is trending everywhere as the best spot to live. So, whole families are packing up and moving in because of it. Hans is floored and has to walk into Callista on foot. Shockingly, the locals are all waiting to hype him up. Hans asks if William staged this welcome, but he says, nope, fans were just waiting, and news of his return spread like wildfire. William also winks, saying he spun a cool story about the flood, so Hans is clear. Hans snags a bloom from a tot, takes a whiff, and feels the I'm home vibes hit hard. Hits the castle, finds the whole squad lined up for his return. Staff asks, food or nap, boss? They're ready to serve. Hans goes, nah fam, show me the boring admin logs. ASAP, dude's grinding already. The staff, zero shock. They know he's a total workaholic weirdo. William grabs the reports. First up, the Compton Mountain drama. He says mining prep is basically in-game mode start time. Hans is hyped. Hans kept this iron or hustle super hyped cause rival dukes would totally crash the party. Legality be done. Will then drops that he tracked down that smithy Hans wanted. Guys named Will stressing cause Grunberg looks kinda mid right now. Will says the dude was totally shook by the gig Hans had lined up. Hans ain't sweating it. He knows Grunberg's a late bloomer legend. In the past timeline, Grunberg was a smithing god everyone thirsted for. He left Callista eventually. Hans gets Will's doubt, but says, let him boss the mine and shop. Next, Will flash the magic school blueprints Hans ordered. It's so huge. Will's like, you for real doing this? Hans is like, yeah, promised myself, gotta do it. After literal hours of grinding, Hans is finally done. Lockie is salty about him working so hard on day one back, but that's just his vibe. Hans is shook. Asa and Leah waited up instead of crashing. They're like, we chillin'? The carriage ride was plush. Asa clings to Hans, hyping Callista over the capital instantly. Hans proposes they do a vibe check on the turf tomorrow. Long time no see. Asa says yes, before he even finishes. Blink and 2 years fly by. Biz is booming hard. Back in the capital, one district is popping off crazy. People literally started calling it Callista Street, mainly cause Callista Bank HQ is there, flexing. Much they've glowed up since opening 2 years back, but there's another spot that's a total people magnet. The Sea Breeze seafood joint. Every guest there is absolutely loving the grub. Best part, even regular folks are welcome. It's pricey, but normies still go for special occasions, since it's doable. It's also lit, because buying seafood here used to be totally delusional. It's everywhere now, thanks to fish used to rot way before hitting the city limits. Word is, a mage is spamming preservation spells, on the delivery wagons. Literal magic fridge. Trip takes days. Doesn't matter, stays fresh. The rich kids are gossiping, but it's kinda sus. That magic is third circle level. Not easy to do. They assume imperial mages are secretly involved. Funny part, those mages are banned from side hustles. So one guy figures, the palace must be backing this restaurant. But the actual owner? Still a massive question mark. One noble is super salty about mixing with prices are low, so regular folks can grub too. but the snobs take the second floor. While the commoners chill on the first. Turns out there's a VIP penthouse for big shots. Jeepin begs Hans to admit he's the real boss. No way they believe a guy like me owns this. Hans smirks. I just funded the plan. Bruh, you made the menu slap for the whole city. Hans thinks Jeep deserves all the clout. Jeep has no choice but to roll with it. He accepts the title, thanking Hans for the boost. Hans praises the food. Jeep admits he leveled it up today. Hans is finally back in the capital game. He was stuck managing territory. Totally boring. Now he's ready to launch more businesses. Just then, his guest arrives a bit early. Hans is done eating, so he doesn't make M wait. Send M in. It's Bowen at the door. Bowen offers flowers, kneeling like a total fanboy, thanking him for the private VIP room access. Once seated, Bowen flexes his expansion plans. Hans has shook a fifth branch already. Bowen's clothing empire started with ... fake flowers, then absolutely swept the nation. Now he's doing materials and ladies' fashion too. Dude's a winner. They call him Golden Hands. Hans gives props for the men's salon success. Started rough, but turned out amazing. Bowen says, I owe it all to these eyes. Hans has lost your eyes. What do you mean? Bowen breaks down how he analyzed Hans's fit. Bowen starts geeking out over how he'd style Hans if he was the one calling the shots. He finishes up, claiming he'd make the sleeves chunky to hide Hans's wrist bling. Bowen totally clocks that the accessory is whoosh, since Hans never takes it off. It's clearly super deep to him. So, he warns Hans to keep it on the down low. Hans gets sweaty saying thanks. Dude's right though. It's a dragon relic. Bowen tells him to slide by the salon anytime for a total glow. He brags he can fix anyone's vibe, except one guy. Hans is shoot. Last time he chatted with Annabelle. She had zero tea on. Dying to know. Hans asks if Bowen actually met the dude. Bowen's like, kids these days wouldn't have seen him. He spills that he peeped Crower at a party 10 years back. Guy was rocking an all-black fit, like he was at a funeral. Crower just stared out the window the whole time, start to finish, didn't say a single word or vibe with anyone. Bowen was confused why the guy even showed up if he was gonna act that salty. Hans asks for a vibe check. Bowen can't say much since they didn't talk, but he totally noticed something weird when he checked the guy's eyes. One purple, one black. Hans realizes the dude has hetero. Later, Hans asks Leah and Asa if they've seen Crower IRL. Both say no. Hans admits the only info Annabelle could dig up is a rumor that Crower ghosted his own castle. Hans is super annoyed and thinks about ditching the search. Leah suddenly brings up that Hans is prepping for a turf war, and he's like, neighbors are getting super sus that the area is plotting something since immigrants flood in every minute. Hans also plans to utilize the night squad Leah is leaving behind. Even though Hans is used to Lakia always hanging around, he's smart enough not count him in. Their 5-year deal is about to expire, so they're basically in a long, slow breakup phase. Soon after, Grunberg gets summoned to the castle. The staff already knows Hans is a mage, but nobody's gossiping about it. They're too busy protecting their home and their young boss. A bit later, Grunberg rolls up to the castle to meet Hans. Even though Grunberg knows that even for a mage, William is shook by how Hans can zip between the capital and Callista like they're neighbors. Hans wraps up the report and vibes with Grunberg next. Looks like Grunberg finished that sword and brought it over. Hans grabs it and it's crazy light. Grunberg's like, cut the weight in half, doubled the power. He promises that by next week, the whole night order gets equipped. William's amazed by Grunberg's skills and Hans's gut instincts. Once the sword inspection is done, Hans reveals the next project. Night Order, Armor. Nosy William asks if Hans cooked up the design himself. Hans nods. Yeah, based it on the Imperial Knights. Grunberg pokes the chest hole. Power source goes here. Hans is totally floored. Guy guessed the mechanic just by looking. Genius. Grunberg admits he might be clueless on the how, but he knows it'll be epic. Grunberg bails with the plans. Hans tells William, I trust him. William agrees. Yeah, dude's solid. Then William brings up one more thing. I know I said this before, but ... The drought, it's rained like once all year. Hans's reservoir idea saved them so far. But William is stressing. If the rainy season flops, they're all toast. Hans chills him out. Can't fix weather, but I prepped enough so nobody starves. He tells William to spread the word so folks stop panicking. Meeting adjourned. Hans goes into deep thought mode. He bets the drought is just starting. The grass is already crispy, but he can't just hack reality because he knows the future. Gotta be careful not to wreck fate. Learned that the hard way. Hans decides he needs to take a chill pill and reset his brain. Later, Leia peeps Grunberg's blade. He gives props, but still flexes that his own gear is way more cracked. Leah asks Asa where his shadow is at. Loki Ruji is ghosting. non-stop, but they're clueless, cause he's ninja level stealth. Hans and Lakia grill Essa too. A sauce like cat dudes roam. Ryugi bounces, but always circles back. Lakia asks if Hans has big moves coming. He's like, no, just stuck grinding at the bank and food spots. Hans is stoked. His past life was dead quiet right now. Means he can just hustle. Meanwhile, EMP and Regina link at their low-key spot nearby. Both rockin' normie fits, so nobody gets sus. They're hyped to see each other, catching vibes. EMP says he's Gucci, cause Ivan covers for his sneaky exit. But Regina peeps, he's acting weird. You good? She asks. He spills the tea. He got another ring offer from McCarthy. Mom says he can't keep ghosting them forever. It's awkward. Regina realizes she's dating the literal Emperor's Zero promise. They stay like this. EMP asks, you cool with our situationship right now? Regina's lost on what he means. He asks if she's okay, hiding their status in plain clothes. He asks if she's chill with keeping their love secret like a crime. Nervous? She says it's chill. She thinks that EMP is just protecting her fam from political drama. She tells him she thought hard about us. Even if he marries, she's down to just stay back. Just then, the EMP cuts in. That ain't it for me. Regina freezes. EMP stands up, looking serious. He's announcing his marriage plans at the council. Before she processes, EMP drops. On one knee, will you marry me? Regina goes full tomato mode, hand over mouth, totally shook. Later, Ullman shows stats. Hans is hyped. Tellin' Ullman, quit butlering. BA CEO. Ullman's humble. It's all your big brain staffing, boss. Ullman then asks if new guy William is slayin'. Hans nods. He is crushing it. Knows more tea on Callista than me. Hans sets almond up about the drought. Elsewhere, since Callista seems to be the only spot not failing, Ullman agrees, saying the tea is bad. Super bad. Claude and Benny says farmers are hoarding, eats like crazy. Some peeps even quit farming because they know a mega famine is coming. Ullman asks if that'll make loan repayments impossible. Hans tells him to chill on policies and stick to the plan. He'll give the heads up when it's time to switch gears. Post-meeting, Annabelle zooms. In screaming, they gotta hit the rocks on Bash next week. Hans isn't vibing with it, and she can tell. He's like, no parties, remember. But she swears this one hits different. Word is, Lady Sorgan's gonna be there. Hans is shook because he knows exactly who that is. Rebecca Von Wynn is basically the queen of high society, always trending as the top celeb. Even if she's usually ghosting the empire, she's still huge because her grandpa is Duke Townsend. Plus, she is drop-dead gorgeous, literally called the beauty goddess. And Ebel reminds him how much Townsend adores his grandkid, and he might miss his shot if she leaves. She begs Hans to take the chance to network with Rebecca. Hans thinks, then says, thanks, but hard pass. He gets that Rebecca is a major deal, but she seems all about business, not partying. Annabelle reminds him he's marriage age and mom's turns out Haynes is 20 already, but he says he ain't looking to hitch. Jokes on him when he sees the Emperor later. The Emperor says he wants to marry Regina. Hans trips from shock, and the Emperor's like, you good. An hour earlier, Yvonne said he should visit. He thought it was work stuff, not this. Then the Emperor says, let's walk. He admits he proposed today. Hans asks, what did she say? He says Regina said no, first cause she felt too unskilled to be empress, a total burden. But Loki, she really wants to be with him, so she confessed she was gonna. She follows Hans blindly, cause bro never misses. Deep down, Hans knew they were a thing. As Callista's boss, he picks Regina's hubby, but Hans thinks a ring from the royals is a whole different beast. That wedding won't just be tea time gossip. Knowing Lakia's fate, Hans panicked that every royal snob might flip on him. Now he's sweating, wondering if he's actually got the guts to survive this mess. Suddenly, it hit Hans that they'd arrived at the Empress's crib, totally drowning in light. The king claims this spot is the chilliest, most gorgeous zone inside the entire royal fort, a place he hits up whenever he's feeling super lonely and since the vibe is perfect, the boss spills the tea on his plan to gift Regina the garden, cause it's his absolute fave treasure. Honestly, he's ready to simp hard and give her everything to make her feel like a total queen. Hans recalled that after the meal he and Regina shared with the king 2 years back, they got totally ghosted by the palace. Plus, with the bank blowing up, back then, every snob's eyes would be glued to them. So, the king basically had to shield Callista from all the nosy high-pressure drama of the elite. Hans figured that the king and Regina sneaking around was just to dodge the haters' stares. But then, out of the blue, the boss drags Hans into the queen's private turf. Seeing this, Hans bet the king was finally ready to square up against those controlling snobs. Right then, Hans asks if he can drop one super savage and nosy question. The big guy told Hans to just spill whatever's on his mind. So Hans asks what kind of vibe he wants the world to have. Basically, he wants the tea on where the empire is actually heading. The boss paused, admitting that question was a total curveball he didn't see coming. He replied that it might sound like a total dream, but he wants a place where everyone gets a fair shot. He wants peeps to live free, ignoring status, class, gender, or where they came from. Hans suddenly realized he shouldn't freak out since he's actually leveled up in this life. Hans is cool with his crew spreading out, even to the palace, cause now he's buff enough to defend his turf. Thinking this, Hans drops down to his knees, paying mad respect and begging the boss to treat Regina right. Soon after, they threw the Grand Council meeting, and the king dropped the bomb that he's gonna marry Regina. Everyone gasped, totally frozen in their chairs. One dude thought the king was joking, because the Calistophem is some random obscure clan with zero clout or legit creds. Plus, they feel this is way too random. The boss claps back that they were the ones begging him to get hitched. Then Duke John Townsend pipes up, saying he caught feelings for Regina, but a royal wedding is a big deal, not a whim. Duke Alan McCarthy backed him up, like, messing this up could totally wreck the empire's vibe and traditions. The king reminded them that House Callista is actually Arg noble royalty too. He demanded to know what weird ruler they were using to measure this so-called dignity. Townsend speaks up, noting they already gave the big boss a candidate cheat sheet. They figure a foreign princess boosts the empire's stats. Plus, fancy noble girls fit the vibe and keep the rep clean. Unlike randoms, McCarthy backs up Townsend, telling the king not to marry for love like some basic peasant. Then McCarthy drops the request denied bomb on him. Since grabbing the crown at a young age, he was just a silent prop. Not anymore though. The boss snaps, asking where exactly these rules are written down. He reminds them his own mom wasn't some VIP, asking if they think she ruined the empire's aesthetic. Furious, the emperor roasts them for craving power while using fake traditions as an excuse. Looking super serious, the king declares he runs this show and he's picking his own wifey. Then he drops a wild ultimatum. He threatens to stay a bachelor forever if they keep blocking him, meaning the bloodline ends there and Duke McCarthy gets the loot by default. Seeing the king's rage, the squad tries to chill him out, but he just storms off. Later, Townsend is chatting with his kid Glenat about the major drama at the meeting. Glenat is totally lost, thinking how McCarthy should celebrate snagging the throne if the king has no heir. But McCarthy hated that idea too, confusing Glenat even more. Townsend scolds his son for being totally clueless. He explains the empire, its history, so even greedy McCarthy won't risk a coup. Plus, if that happens, a war will totally start, wiping out one side completely. Townsend notes the king changed his tune, going rogue, so they have no choice but to play along now. He decides to vote for the wedding just to see how far the king's new attitude goes. He wonders if Regina or Hans sparked this sudden change. Later, Hans and Regina finally tell Mom the news. Mom is shocked and yells at them for the delay. Hans apologizes, omitting that the chaos happened just today. She mentions that she isn't the type to meddle in their love lives, but warns Regina the crown isn't just about catching feels. Hans agrees, it's scary, but swears they're ready to squat up and face it. Also, Hans tells his mom to chill, swearing he'll protect the fam with everything he's got. He begs her to just trust him and Regina on this whole mess. Mom grins, joking that he sounds like an ancient grandpa trapped in a teen's body. Mom finally caves. She tells Regina to chill, since their happiness is the main vibe. Regina is hyped, but then Mom drops a truth bomb. She knew Regina was sneaking out in peasant drip for ages, so she demands the full tea on how she bagged the emperor. Suddenly, Hans is like, yo, the big boss wants to see you. Soon, the emperor links up with the whole squad. Up in the VIP section of Mom is shook, it is a restaurant, but the emperor insists it is valid. Hans jumps in to hype the food, telling everyone to dig in since the ingredients are top. The vibe is immaculate, and Hans is glad Mom stopped stressing. Even Ivan is grinning like a fool. He never bet on the emperor actually marrying for love. Ivan tells Hans he is super thankful. Since life got way better after meeting the siblings, Hans seizes the moment to ask a massive favor. Ivan is floored that Hans wants his students as profs. Turns out, the emperor already knew about the Callista School project. Hans brings up the flop era of magic education, saying they need to raise some real talent in the department. So he needs legitimate imperial mages to fix the mess. But he needs the green light to move the squad out of the city. Meanwhile, things get awkward. Mom hates that Hans is talking business at dinner, but Regina tells her to relax, since she is actually invested in the academy blowing up to the emperor, and Ivan both give Hans a big thumbs up. But they cannot promise the students will not ghost him. Ivan explains the research nerds are super picky. They turn down big noble cash just to stay independent. They literally just want clout, and working for the emperor gives them honor points. Ivan thinks asking them to teach private school is a Hans gets the drama, but then he plays his ace. As a sixth circle mage, he will tutor the teachers personally. The Emperor's jaw hits the floor, since Hans never actually admitted he has powers before. Plus, dropping his rank like that is wild. Regina is shook, unaware he is actually even more. Ivan totally loses it and grabs Hans, shaking him and begging to apply for a job himself. Later, the council officially blesses the wedding. Luckily, Ivan's 3 students got drafted as profs, but the trio is salty since they do not know Hans is a legend yet. Ivan promises Hans that folks will eventually vibe with him and be grateful for life. But Hans is stressing because everything is going way too smooth. Totally sus. Turns out, his gut feeling was spot on, and things were about to get messy real fast. Later, the crew is walking when a thief tries to rob Leia, but gets wrecked instantly. Asa can't believe the dude is dumb enough to try robbing a literal knight in plain sight. Pinned down, the guy starts ranting about rich nobles chilling, while poor folks starve. Hans shocks Leia by telling him to let the guy go immediately. Leia thinks he means free him, but Hans just means don't beat him up, call the cops. Hans knows it's all going downhill because the harvest failed and everyone is broke and hungry. Back home, they find a bunch of fancy carriages parked out front, freaking Hans out. He's like, who invited the party? Alman runs up, saying people keep flooding in to see him, or Regina. Elman says they are big-shot VIPs, so kicking them out wasn't an option. Hans tells Elman to just ghost everyone and deny all visits for now. Before, nobles only came to Hain when they were broke and needed quick cash. But now that Regina is going to be empress, everyone wants to clout chase. Hans already predicted the food shortage and the sudden popularity contest since Regina got the crown nod, but mixing those two things created a disaster he didn't see coming. Suddenly, rumors spread that the new empress cursed the harvest. People say heaven is mad, the emperor picked the wrong girl. Hans walks into his sis's room to find her sobbing while mom tries to calm her down. Hans is shook. She was supposed to be out dress shopping today. Mom spills the tea. Something super embarrassing went down. Some random hater tried to throw trash at her, screaming that Regina's dirty blood is ruining the royal family. The guard caught the guy, but it proved things are getting ugly. Hans is totally crushed hearing this, but Regina wipes her tears and acts like she is cool. She claims she was just spooked and will tough it out from now on. Hans drops to a knee in front of her, telling her not to accept that hate because she is innocent. Regina breaks down again, sobbing. They aren't wrong. The famine is real. She thinks this mess is hopeless, but Hans tells her she is wrong. He can fix it. Later, a massive announcement drops for everyone to hear. Words out. Regina commanded. Free grain drops for the whole empire. Everyone is totally shook to hear about the freebie wheat. In year 858, a nasty famine hit. That's exactly when Regina launched her rescue squad era. The slumlord hears this and gets super salty. Regina didn't ask him first, but his aides chill. She's flexing her future empress status here. Apparently, lords are supposed to watch over their turf and help the peeps, but usually, they do the absolute bare minimum during famine. Just enough so folks don't drop, buying their loyalty cheap. Since Regina's flipping the script, the lord is big mad. He thinks she's a total noob and the peasants won't care yet. Right then, his aide points out, this freebie wheat creates a price crash. The aide spills that just this morning a bundle costs only 8 coppers. Dude shook yesterday it was 60 coppers. House Callista is flooding shops with contract-locked, cheap wheat. The Lord literally raged hearing that. Never met Hans, yet the guy's messing with his turf. Aides lick, it's not just us, it's the whole empire. The second, the Lord hears that, he wonders how Callista snagged that much wheat. With Callista dropping wheat everywhere, they stopped the crazy inflation. This plan started 2 years back when Duran hit the bank for cash. That's when Duran saw the deal for the 7,000 gold loan. The catch Callista gets 50% of his wheat harvest for 5 years. Interest gets paid in crops too. Hans said to check the fine print for any red flags. Duran paused, so Hans asked if 50% was too much. Durant's like, nah. Honestly, he was shocked. The deal was that chill. Since Hans was fronting 7,000 gold, he could have grabbed a total monopoly. He asked if Hans was dealing grain, since Callista wasn't starving. Back in the day, it was standard. Rich got richer, poor got wrecked. In Hans's past life, tons of peeps died cause nobles were greedy. 5 copper wheat would jump to 100. Crazy markup. Farmers took loans they'd literally never pay off. Knowing this, Hans flipped the wheat from Chenoweth, just enough to not crash the market while stashing the leftovers. Now Callista's got mad wheat stacks, enough to feed everyone with plenty of extra credit. Super fast, they sorted the capital while other spots kept sliding into the DMS for help. Suddenly Hans realizes he's swamped with zero chill time. Lakia, peeps the stress levels and asks why he's DIYing the distro instead of just wholesaling it. Hans is like, nah, big cores are sketchy. They'd grab the stash and hike price. Asa then points out, Hans is moving different because this wheat drop is for Regina's clout. Leah and Hans are totally shook hearing that from Asa since he usually doesn't have that big brain energy. Low-key Asa's right. Hans wasn't trying to farm XP from the disaster. He's always dodged drama with the nobles though. He even ghosted social events so he wouldn't make friends or enemies. But since Regina hit Empress status, he can't sit on the fence now. It's obvious House Callista is fam with the royals now. Hans tells his squad that House Callisto's buffed the Emperor's stats now, so he's gonna play hardball for him. Lakia grins hearing Hansi's new game plan. Hans asks if Regina's good since he left him on babysitting duty. Leah tells Hans there's been zero drama so far. Hans says sorry for the heavy task, but Leia says the vibe shifted. Turns out, Regina just gets hype and cheers whenever she hits the city. Hans loves hearing. That means the relief strat is a total W. Right then, Elman says Joel Trading wants a face. Hans is confused because he already left. Everyone on red, but hearing Ivan's with them piques his interest. Annabelle had already spilled the tea that Joel had. Links with Ivan and might use that to slide into his circle. Hans finally lets Ivan and Joel in and apologizes for ghosting. Even though Lakia is totally salty, Hans still tells him to chill. It's not deep. The guy introduces himself as Kirk Joel and says sorry for being rude. Joel says he's there to snag the distro rights for Callista's wheat. Hans asks if Joel knows why he avoids merchants, and Joel nods. He says he knows Hans is all about helping the little guy. Joel then promises Hans he's not chasing quick cash, but wants that nationwide reach. Because of that, his crew will trade at whatever price set without adding extra fees. Joel adds that Hans is probably wondering if he's legit, so to prove it, he says his company's moving their cash to Callista Bank, meaning Joel's trading firm dumbs their bank for Callista. Callista grabbed cash and clients during the Sullivan fake money mess, but only two tiny firms switched. Basically, the big legacy shops dig old cred over trends. Hans knows scoring Joel's top 10 firm as a main client is huge. The snag, Joel banks with Sullivan, Swappy May, banks for a deal might look to Sullivan like straight up client theft. Worse House McCarthy backs it. Hans thinks, time to fight the Empire's big shot. After a quick set, Hans tells Joel, let's do this. Stoked. Joel swears it's a solid pick. They rush the paperwork. Hans chose this because his aid law is already ticked off. Nobles. Plus, Sullivan likely has beef with Callista for wrecking their check biz. Contract done. Joel's shook that Hans said. The price low, cutting his own profits. Hans knows that trading firms want cash, so sharing keeps vibes chill. Joel totally gets the play. Give a little to stop a back. Impressed by Hans's smarts, Joel says he has zero worries because his rep is everything. Joel says that's how he snagged the catfolk deal. Hans realizes why they call Joel a trade god. He's the first amp. Still, the only guy to deal with cat peeps. Hans saw Joel eyeing Asa, clocking his eye. Hans is shocked he knew Katesa, without any magic hints. Joel says, it's easy. Only catfolk have such fancy fluff. Ivan flips out when he realizes the stray cat he hangs with is actually a whole catboy clueless mud. Joel slides up, bows, and drops the Son of Shahat title on him. Poof! Asa goes human mode. Panicking. Yo, how do you know me? Joel smirks. You might have forgot, but I never forget a face. Asa definitely doesn't. Vibe with that and just yeets himself out. Later, Hans hits up Asa's hideout, asking to crash. Hans' new essay was VIP, but show that's Cat King royalty. So Hans slides in, sitting next to Asa to give some moral support. Asa spills the tea. His own brother wrecked him way back when. Apparently, bro tried to unalive him, so he bailed. He's terrified they'll hunt him down if he's exposed. Hans is totally shook. He asks if there's some throne drama, but Asa shakes his head. Nope. See, only legit heirs get the Shah title, and he's not one, so he has zero claim to the crown. Hans is confused. Why is the brother so salty then? Asa admits he has zero clue why his bro snapped. Hans can tell the poor guy is totally traumatized by it. Hans swears he already made Joel keep his mouth shut. Ivan's also sworn to secrecy. Lips are sealed. They swore even if the world ends, they won't spill the beans. With that drama gone, Hans tells Asa he's totally safe here. No worries. Asa's basically fam now, and Hans protects the squad. He reminds him, stay as long as you want, dude. Wedding morning, Hans hits Regina's room, first thing. He asks how she is. She says it all feels like a dream. Regina vents about the prep. Even picking bling was a drag. Hans totally gets that she must be drained, but she's mostly just hyper from excitement. Hans asks for her hand. He's got a sweet gift ready. He takes off his necklace and hands it to her. She's shook. Hours later, she and the emperor tie the knot. Usually, royal weddings are huge, but with the famine, they kept it low-key indoors. Deep down, they didn't want to upset the public. Ivan set up major magic shields around the hall. Security at the door was tight, 0 weapons. So Hans thinks he can finally chill out, but he prepped. That necklace is a magic artifact. That's why she freaked. He told her, never take it off. And don't spill the secret. Regina then asks. Hans confirms the palace is basically a shark tank. Tell him Regina to trust absolutely 0 people here. Hid in the banquet hall now. Hans prays she keeps that necklace strictly ornamental. Wedding's over. Reception starts. Cue the legit social battle royale. Just a schmooze fest to network as the Emperor's new bro. Quick as a flash, Hans bumps into Duke Townsend and pays his dues to the guy. They shake, and Townsend's grip is terrifying. Way heavier pressure than even Sullivan gave off. That makes it crystal clear. Townsend is definitely not on Team Hans. Was that a silent threat or just a flex? He wonders. Suddenly, Prince Karel, from Garcia, wants to holler at him. Hans strolls over to greet the guy who traveled miles to be here. Karl shook when Hans speaks Garcia. Bro, you speak my language. Hans pulls a fast one, claiming he studied basics, ignoring the dragon cheat codes he actually used. Karl practically tackles Hans's hands, raving that he's the first local to actually speak fluent sentences. He rants that nobody here understands a word of Garcia. His translator is trash, so Karl's been totally losing it. Word spreads fast. Hans speaks Garcia. Now Karl can finally yap freely. Now everyone's wondering if Hans is into trade, explaining his unexpected language skills. Then, a super sweet voice chimes in from behind. He spins around Manhwa Toto Stunner Alert. She gives him props for his fluent foreign tongue. She asks if he's a traveler and what his farthest trip was. Hans claims he's a homebody who just learned everything from books. Wondering who this hottie is, Hans asks for her name. She apologizes, blaming her excitement for the rude lack of intro. She drops her name Rebecca Swerganen. When Hans realizes he's facing the ultimate high society queen bee, the exact girl Abel tried to set him up with earlier. Everyone notices Rebecca talking to Hema. Total first for her to approach a guy. Rebecca, quickly, sees the staring, apologizes for the awkward vibes, and offers to bail. But Hans assures her he's totally cool, so no need to stress about him. Hans notes the party just started, but she insists on bouncing. Walking off, she drops a wheel. Meet again. If fate says so line. The second guys see her leaving. They waste 0 time, offering escorts. Hans totally gets her hype now. Done greeting the big shots, Hans thinks about chilling for a sec. Suddenly, Claude appears, and Hans asks if he's doing okay. Claude says yes, but spoiler alert, that ain't the real Claude. So, mask guy is actually Leah. He was desperate to go, so Hans magic swapped his mug with Claude. Before hitting the ceremony, Hans asked if he'd freak out seeing the snobs who wrecked his face. Leah admits it's a total but skipping the big boss's wedding, major FOMO, he had to see it. So the duo chills there too. Peep Regina and the EMP holding hands. A whole new era vibe. Later, Regina spends all morning gossiping with Mama Dodger's bummed she couldn't make the party. Barig says, health first best. Reg spills tea. Her own mom was sick forever too, and she played nurse back then. She totally gets the struggle. She tells Dodger she's down to be her new Mom is shook by how cool Regina acts. Thinks she's unworthy of such a rad dog. Then Mom spots her kid at the door and tells Reg to scoot. Hubby's waiting. Girl. EMP walks in like, chill, just checking if you two are vibing. Still, Mama pushes Reg to go see her man. They bow out. Mom's just hyped her son is finally grinning. While strolling the halls, the EMP props Regina for boosting his mom's mood since she moved in. Reg tells the big guy. It's NBD Dogger gives her total mom vibes anyway. Suddenly, a servant drops a letter from House Callista. Reg reads it and gasps. Bros Academy is finally done. Hans toured the school, and he was floored. The place is ginormous. Elmon swears it'll be the top school, just like he planned. Asa is already dead tired from the size. He blanked on the tour, so Hans breaks out the map. Hans lists 3 main departments. Admin stuff, night training, and magic classes. Central building is for everyone. Take their required gen ed classes. Hans points out dorms in the caf. Leah jumps in. Will people actually be cool with dorms? Hans gets it's weird for Leah nobles and normies bunking together. Actually, there's already major drama. Nobles refuse to send their kids there. But Hans has a crafty fix. Ready? So, there are 2 ways to get in. First, huge cash and a fancy title. Hans smirks at allure in folks who lack one of those. Hans picks students on skill, not clout. Even Lakia admits randoms can outshine fancy nobles. Then Hans points to the magic department. Turns out, for schools exist, but only to actually teach spells. And those two, total jokes. Their magic program is just a prop. They teach nothing. But that ain't happening. Hans's place. His teachers are Imperial Magizavon's own squad. Rich or broke, doesn't matter. If you want to sling spells, you literally have to enroll here. No other choice. Meanwhile, Ivan's crew is heading over, totally confused why they got shipped to this random school. One guy thinks Ivan just caved cause Callista is fam with the Emperor. Now, but his buddy calls Cap. Ivan never mixes work with drama. Everyone knows that. Townsend hears about the school and immediately starts spiraling with crazy theories. He thinks Hans made Regina charm the Emperor just to level up. Wild. Plus, he bets Ivan is secretly powering that seafood joint with magic, meaning Callista owns the whole thing. Townsend figures the bank was rigged the exact same way. He assumes Hans got Ivan to cheat. On the fake money detector, his aide is like Sir. Townsend gets salty and admits what he's actually stressed about is Hans's whole vibe. He hates that Hans keeps forcing nobles and normies to hang out together. Is Hans trying to nerf the nobles or just playing for D-chess? Since he can't read Hans's mind, Townsend decides it's time to just delete Hans permanently. The aide is shook, saying, "Yo, that's way harder to pull off now." He reminds him Hans did that huge charity project and he's the Emperor's bro. So, trying to cancel him is basically impossible. But Townsend gets dark, saying that elimination he means isn't just a bad reputation, it's worse. He orders some mystery prep work. It's time to take Hans out for good. Soon, hype about the new academy shook the city. Rumors were flying everywhere. Finally, the big opening ceremony day hit. Jane and Anthony, two magic students, are chilling in the food court. Main caf food is free, but you can also hit up the dining district if you want. That area sells snacks, sweets, and all the premium grub. It's all super cheap too, so students don't go broke. Hans called it Safford Academy, keeping his word. Anthony is hyped that a regular guy like him actually got in. Jane says the dorms are solo rooms. Total privacy, finally. Then some snobby noble walks by and calls them loud peasants. But then, the academy's crawling with fancy nobles dying to learn from Ivan's squad. Some legit dropped out of elite schools just to be here. Jane and Anthony are hyped. They got in purely on skill. Then Rebecca slides up, asking for their vibe check on the place. Anthony's shook a gorge noble, chatting them up. While starstruck, Jane promises to spill whatever tea she needs. But she warns her that they're freshies, so they're kinda clueless. Rebecca asks what Safford actually stands for. Hans usually brands everything Callista, so this is sus. Jane admits she never even thought about the name's roots. Anthony adds there's zip about it in the student handbook either. Rebecca realizes nobody knows. She thanks them anyway. As she dips, Anthony asks her, "Major?" But she says she's just touring for fun. Makes sense? It's open house day, so anyone can crash. There's even some paparazzi lurking around. Snapper sees Rebecca, the wanderer, and starts clicking. He figured she wouldn't miss this gig given her travel bug. Girls addicted to exploring random unknown spots. Rebecca notices the snooty nobles hate that they gotta mix with happy commoners. Just confirms Hans is a total weirdo in a good way. Suddenly, she spots a dude who gives off weird vibes. Then she locks eyes with him. Mismatched eyes. Definitely Marcus Crower, but Crower spins around and bails. Guess he clocked who she was. She's Townsend's grandkid, so he's playing it safe. Passing another oddball, he wonders who Hans invited. Later, students get herded into the main hall. Rich kids are gagging at sharing space with no. Then Hans, the big boss, steps up to chat. "Thanks for coming," he says, kicking things off. He tells the crowd this school is all about equality. He wants everyone to learn and pay it forward later. The parents are shook at how young Hans actually is. Like, how does a kid know this much about teaching? Some think he just built this place on bank loans. Ivan's crew hears the gossip and knows the parents doubt him. Tara's totally over it, claiming that she could care less, she's just following Ivan's bossy orders. She thinks Hans sees this school as a cash grab, but Byron's like, nah, swearing he already check the place, it's built with legit top-tier stuff. Byron figures Hans wouldn't drop that much cash if he wasn't a magic nerd. But then there's Porto, who thinks Hans is just a rich poser with zero actual magic skills. Mid-speech, Hans vibes weird mana. Since he didn't, it's Ivan's crew. He just sticks to the ceremony for now. Meanwhile, Lakia and Asa are watching Hans yap from the back. Asa's luck while Hans talks like he's lived two lives. Lias just like duh, he actually prepped for this. She roasts Asa for actually staying put super weird for him. Asa says today feels diff, and his gut is screaming bad vibes. Then his senses go nuts at something creepy, making him jump. Lakia grabs him to chill, but boom, the roof falls. Total chaos. Some rich dude screams about cheap materials, but his wifey yells, him to save their girls first. It gets messy. Leah tells Hans to bail while they clear the place. Hans yells, "Chill," but right as he's gonna cast magic, something weird blocks him. He realizes the vibe shaking the room is freezing him. No doubt, he's caught in a hold spell. A mage did this. Porto tries to magic up, but Terra grabs him, like let's bounce first. Hans nearly flips his lead, realizing a mage is trying to wipe them all out. Classic. That shady guy from before caused it all. He's ready to gloat, but Hans smashes the spell. Bad guy sees it and totally freaked. Too late. Hans is ticked off. Eyes glowing yellow. Evil dude so shook, he trips and face. Then everyone left, sees Hans hovering. Even Asaz shook that Hans is outing himself. But Hans knows this is way trickier than the flood. He gotta block the debris, or it's game over for everyone. He realizes he needs a spell that's beast mode but precise. Hans drops an 8-circle spell, Sanctuary, to prop up the building. It's everyone in the hall, even Ivan's students, suddenly realizes they're seeing legit magic. Porto's totally shook, realizing Hans is a wizard. Seeing the distraction, Leah yells at top volume, telling mages to get peeps out, ace. As folks leave, Hans walks up to the scared baddie. Outside, that rude noble starts. Dad's packing bags to bounce back home, but his daughter hits the brakes. Aya refuses, telling Pops she's staying put to hit the books right here. The noble dude argues back, claiming the whole school is built like trash and might collapse any second. But Aya shakes her head, reminding him about the epic magic he just saw. She tells her dad those other schools are totally garbage at teaching spells, and deep down, he knows it. Ila gushes about how Hans is basically a wizard god. Plus, she bets this whole mess wasn't an accident, it was an attack. Dad's confused, so she mentions Hans stalking some weirdo on the way out. She bets that creepy guy. Guilty as heck, which is why he was frozen stiff right there. Since it sounds suspicious, the noble decides to stick around for the gossip. Suddenly, one of the fancy moms grabs Porto, screaming why he isn't fixing her kid yet. Porto tries to chill her out, explaining that her boy's barely scratched, so he's gotta fix the dying kids first. Even the son agrees, telling his mom that he isn't dying, so the doc should save the others. Since healing magic is super hard, Porto knows they gotta prioritize the worst cases. Right then, Terra pops up to tell Porto they fixed the small cuts, but they completely drained their mana batteries. Porto nods, saying he'll handle the rest of the mess, but a mom overhears them chatting about being out of juice, and she panics since kids are actually dying. Porto apologizes to the lady, telling her mages aren't gods who can just snap fingers and fix fatal wounds. But then Hans steps up, demanding to see the kids who need help ASAP. As Hans walks over, Terra is totally shook that his eyes are normal, swearing they were yellow 5 seconds ago. The butler points Hans to 2 kids, who are in such bad shape the healers didn't even dare touch them. Apparently, they already called for an emergency pickup. Hans ignores the guy, kneeling down to put his hands on the patients. Watching this, Porto thinks Hans is joking around, since magic isn't some cheat code that instantly fixes people. Seriously, even level 3 spells are risky enough, let alone trying to fix critical damage. Shockingly, Hans dumps tons of mana into them for an instant fix. Everyone watching drops their jaws, because Hans healed them perfectly, not even leaving a scratch behind. Suddenly, people realize Hans might be on the same crazy level as Ivan, but Porto's no dummy. He sees Hans as way beyond a 5th circle mage. Hans takes 2 steps before tripping over his own feet from exhaustion. Luckily, Lakia swoops in to catch him. Asked if he's hurt, Hans says, "Nah, just out of juice." Hans asks if he caught the baddie. Lakia's like, "Nope." Turns out Asa's babysitting the guy since he totally gave up. Lakia tells Hans, "Dude, just bounce. We got the wounded covered. Seriously, leave the cleanup to us. You've done enough." Suddenly, Leia gets smacked with those creepy vibes again. He spots Crower right there, but has zero clue who he is. No Mer vibes, but Leia knows that guy's walking trouble. Crower glares at them for a sec, then dips, leaving Leia shook. Hans peeps that Leia is stressing out big time, but Leia plays it cool, like don't sweat it, nothing major. Then suggests they hightail it back to the castle. Stat. Moments later, Regina and her hubby roll up to Callista Castle. Hans steps out and Regina practically tackles him with concern. The Emperor is stunned. He was worried about being late, not expecting a whole disaster movie to play out here. He checks if Hans is wrecked, but Hans says he's chill, just totally drained of mana, needs a nap, and he'll be solid. The Emperor asks if this was just some random accident. Hans gets serious and goes, "Nah, it's way deeper than that." He says they need to spill the tea in the reception room. Leaving, the Emperor orders the knights to lock the place down. Ivan tries to follow, but his students snatch him up fast. They look absolutely livid while dragging him to a corner. They start roasting him for hiding that Hans is an archmage. Ivan admits only he and the Emperor were in on the secret. Claims Hans wanted to keep it low-key. And the boss agreed. But now, the cat is completely out of the bag. Everyone knows. And the two dukes are gonna flip their lids. The trio starts spiraling because they treated Hans like trash. Tara is furiously brainstorming how to uncancel herself. She wants to beg on her knees, but Porto's like, too much, girl. Then Ivan drops a bomb. Hans promised them private lessons. Later on, but only if they become professors at the academy. That breaks them. They completely lose their minds with joy. They start screaming about offering their bodies for science. Ivan makes it worse, saying he's jealous they get to learn from a legit sixth circle art. That's a huge flex. Porto doubts the rank, so Ivan asks for the play-by. Porto admits the magic was super weird and unfamiliar, like the dude cast spells without even saying a single word. Tara's still geeking out over the insane healing magic use. Ivan's jaw hits the floor. Wait, he used healing spells too. Tara explains she has zero clue how he did it. His mana structure for saving to dying people was baffling. Then Byron notices something sus about the academy's name. He points out Saffred is the name of a legendary gold dragon, and drops a theory. What if Hans is actually a dragon? Ivan shuts that down, telling Byron to quit the Porto agrees, reminding Byron that dragons peaced out 100 years ago. Hans ain't no lizard. Ivan figures the name's just a tribute to the OG magic source. Then Ivan begs his student to quit stalking Hans' mages. Hates Ivan dips, leaving the squad to gossip about Hans. They fanboy for minutes on how Hans will fix magic's flop era. Ivan meets up with Hans and the royal power couple. Hans is stoked to see Ivan was literally about to call. He spills the tea. Culprit caught, and Ivan shook. He can't believe a wizard did magical terrorism. He's stressing. It's an inside job, but Hans says, nope, his monovision is 20/20th. Then he drops this. The guy's a level 4 dark mage. Super rare, super bad. No level 4s here, so the Imperial squad is clearly innocent. The Emperor is totally floored. Has to ask Hans, bro, are you 100% sure? Hans nods. While they argue, Ivan blurts out, it's Keenan. That name sounds alien to them. Plus, Ivan's shaking like a leaf. Sketchy. Meanwhile, outside, Head Knight Pet, Royal Guard, Captain Krisen, are moving. Troops into perfect defensive formation. Zero gaps. Petros is like, never thought I'd see this. Kessel again after that whole messy Leia chase. Same dude who dissed Regina, now working for the Empress. Chrysan's ears perk up at the Leia talk, asking if Petro actually saw the corpse. Petro says it was gross, but Krisen presses for proof. Petro gets suspicious. What? Krisen cares so much. So Chrysan's like, little do they know, Leia spying from his window, and it seems he and Krisen are connected. Inside, Ivan explains Keenan was his BFF back in the day. Dude was basically the Einstein of Imperial mages. When he became the first of their crew, hit Circle 4, the whole lab went totally wild. But haters gonna hate seeing a commoner succeed. Soon after, Keenan got cornered by two mages showing a magic formula. They pressure him to boost the spell and show off. Keenan senses bad vibes, but they keep hyping him. Desperate for clout, Keenan saw his chance to win M over. Keenan fires up the spell, but it's dark magic that totally owns him. Dark magic ain't like normal spells, using your mana. You trade your soul to demons for infinite juice. Since dark magic users are so wicked, the Empire labeled it a crime on par with treason. They banned it for hundreds of years, which is why nobody spots dark magic just by looking at it. Keenan says he got played, but the judges ignore him, saying he used dark arts, so it's game over. The judge booted him from the research. Laban ordered him executed for the dark stuff. Ivan says he ghosted after that. 10 years back, Ivan thought Keenan was toast, but this new mage feels like him. Hans is like, Ivan should go see Keenan to vibe check him. Hans takes M to the basement. Emperor's shocked, there's no guards. Hans says there's no need for guards. Then the boss spots Yvonne hiding his face. He asks what's up, and Hans suddenly remembers. He apologizes, realizing he forgot about the barrier that blocks everyone's magic but his. Since Ivan's magic faded, Hans offers to look away if he's shy. Inside, Ivan just wonders how up Hans is to block magic for everyone but himself. Yvonne is shook, never seen this spell. Hans is totally next level. Just then, they hit the cell and Keenan bolts. When he spots Ivan confirms it, telling Hans that's the guy. Hans is surprised, but tells Yvonne there's an issue. He says Keenan's lost it and can't even hold a Yvonne asks how Keenan ended up like this. Hans has no clue. Hans says Keenan's been acting sketch since the arrest. Hans confirms the dark arts, but can't charge him in this state. The big boss wants the palace feds to take over. Now, like, why is a death row felon crashing in Callista? So weird. Ivan is totally lost. His brain is just buffering. Process this, cause Keenan wouldn't even hurt a pixel. Keenan, finally, reboots. He spots Ivan chillin' behind the locked gate. Meanwhile, Leah and Essa parkour there, butts up a tower to spy on the house layout. Leia is paranoid about that super sus guy from the academy. He admits, the dude is ripped, but is he toxic? Who knows? Leah is totally fried. Plus the Emperor and his wifey are crashing at the castle. He says stay alert or people die. Asa is shook Leia invited him, considering how much he roasts him. Leia's gotta bail on his ego and admit he can't solo Crower. Too risky. Asa's stunned, but Flexy's claiming his cat senses are Asa is yapping away when he spots Crower and points him out. Leah confirms that's the dude. Saw, but poof, the guy ghosts them instantly. Asa admits defeat. Leah was right. They can't handle this boss. Scouting done. The duo heads over to see Hans and spill the tea on the sighting. Leia saw the creep at school and home. Hans is the target. They tried to step up, but Crower is way out of their league. Leia tells Hans to watch his back. Like, seriously? Hans is confused because he already set up spy magic. It should have pinged any weirdos entering. Since the radar missed the intruder, Hans figures. The guy uses magic. Meanwhile, the royal crew is stuck at the crib due to the drama. Ivan asks Hans for a quick one-on-one with Keenan. Hans is like, nope, since Keenan messed up big time. But Ivan swears he won't bail the guy out of trouble. Plus, the Emperor says Ivan keeps business and feelings separate. With all this craziness, down Hans bets Crower and Keenan are partners plotting more chaos. So Hans decides to max out the castle shields. ASA. Days later, Hans's mom zooms in from the capital. She says everyone is totally freaking out. Chatting about a new mage, Owen knows her son has powers but wonders if he's special. Seeing his fam is nosy, Hans spills the beans and admits he isn't just some basic wizard. He claims to be a dragon successor. They're shook. Owen asks how. Since dragons have been gone forever, Hans breaks it down. And after listening, Owen can't believe there's a lair in the Compton Mountains. Regina recalls Hans acting weird back then. Owen gets the secrecy that Spot borders rival lands. If people found out, they'd start a war over it. But Hans played it smart and dodged the drama. Owen asks if this mess links to the dragon stuff. Hans isn't sure but thinks someone tried to squash him. Owen checks in, asking if he's spooked. Buff or not, you're still my baby. Don't try to solo this. Tag us in if you're glitching out. Regina backs. Mom up bruh. I'm Empress now. I'm literally Owen smiles. Glad my kids are crushing it. Hans isn't sweating his own HP, but if his fam gets wiped, that's the real nightmare. That night, Crower creeps back. Beefy barrier. But that's weak sauce. He cracks the compound open like a soda can. Hans vibes, a weird mana glitch. In the shield, why no alarm bells though? Suddenly, Crower's in the window. Surprise. Hans freezes. His six-circle defense just got folded. This guy doesn't have Keenan's trashy energy though. He squints at the intruder. Mismatched eyes. Oh, snap. It's Crower. Hans gasps the name. Crower blinks. I'm famous. Hans's brain spirals, trying to figure if Crower is a big bad behind the drama. Then Crower drops a weird question. Why is a human leaking dragon vibes? That's sus. With a scary, deep voice, he asks, what are you? Hans nearly pees himself. Flashbacks of the warnings about this guy hit hard. The math checks out. Crower is a walking disaster. Shaken, Hans squeaks. Don't come any closer. Dude, wait, the fam's home? If he folds, they're toast. Desperate to save him, he blasts an air spell. Crower just stands there, bored. It hits, ... and poof. 0 damage. Like hitting a wall? Sweat drips down Hans' face. He thought he was max level. Totally unbeatable. Reality check? He just got humbled. Even Crower looks shook. Now, no chanting. You cast that raw. Curious. He presses. Seriously, what species are you? Crower's just nosy. Dragon magic. Hans admits. You guessed it. Human body. Dragon hacks. I use word magic. Crower's intrigued. Hans snaps. Not that it's your biz. Crower asks, did the gold dragon Saffred pass you those powers? Hans is shocked. You can tell just by looking. You with Seaford. Crower shrugs. Nah, just the school name. Kid. Crower drops a bomb. He missed the dragon bus entirely. Plot twist, the guy is actually a guardian. Yep, he's babysitting the black dragon. Hans is shook, a human guardian. That's wild. Dude introduces himself properly. His gramps snagged the mark first, then passed it down. Hans freezes. Aren't dragons 500 years gone? Turns out, that mark comes with a massive life bar. But that dragon mojo is fading. Gramps hit 500. Dad only saw 400. His pop tried to chill with humans and play noble, but totally flopped socially. Hans is like, how'd you hide this for centuries? Did the big shots look the other way? The royals and dukes, Crower smirks. The dukes definitely know something. They keep it quiet to stop the power balance breaking. Imagine if folks knew what the Marquis could really do. Hans gets it. Crower just wanted a friend. Midchat Asa and Lakia crash the party. They leap in, thinking Crower's about to throw hands. Hans waves him off. Chill guys, he's cool. Leah ain't buying it, says he's been tailing Crower. Bam! Crower drops Lakia's real name. Room goes silent. Everyone's freaking out. How'd you figure that out? Crower points to his eye. Gift from the dragon. The eye of truth. Basically, a built-in lie detector. 0 fakes allowed. Hans explains everything. Leia realizes this is the guy. They try getting fancy with titles, but Crower says, nah, just call me by my name. Hans can't believe it. Crower prefers keeping it casual. Hans mentions the pecking order, but Crower ignores it. Titles are just human nonsense. He shrugs. Since Guardies are vegans, he pledges loyalty to Hans. The whole squad is floored, but Hans instantly yells. Nope, he's got enough chaos to manage without adding more. Alright peeps, that's a wrap. Dig in the story? Type next part down below. Smash, subscribe, ring the bell, and like. Thanks, catch you later.